621. Get rewards. Name Uchiha Shisui Life Mission. Uchiha and Konoha main goal. Eliminate the conflict between the Uchiha and Konoha, integrating the Uchiha into Konoha. Mission progress, 46.8%. Danzo Shimura's death pushed Shisui's life mission progress higher than any other disciples. He'd reached a settlement node and was close to the next one. Mu Yue, thinking about everything Danzo had done in the original timeline, felt his death made a kind of grim sense. Danzo had even warned Mu Yue to be wary of the Uchiha before dying, insisting the Uchiha were inherently dangerous, an attitude that now fit all too well with his fate. Mu Yue looked at the reward pop-up. For disciple Uchiha Shisui, the settlement brought several effects. Shisui's strength increased, he promoted reforms in the police force, and it was a small but real step toward resolving the Uchiha-Konoha conflict. The progress reward read, Chakra plus 1600, optional draw scroll fragment S plus mastery, Yin release ninjutsu mastery scroll. These matched the usual 40% settlement rewards other disciples had received, except for the mastery attribute on the ninjutsu scroll. Otherwise, they were identical. The awkward part was that last time 3 disciples had each collected a fragment, but this time only Shisui had settled, so the fragments were temporarily useless. Mu Yue closed the reward window and opened Obito's life mission. Name, Uchiha Obito Life Mission. It's not those who become Hokage who are recognized by everyone, but those recognized by everyone who can become Hokage. Main goal, become the Hokage of Konoha Ninja Village. Mission progress, 44.5%. Obito's life mission progress wasn't as dramatic as Shisui's, but it was still respectable. The life mission was a difficult goal, and gaining progress was never easy. After Nagato's summons, Yahiko had rushed to the Land of Rain at full speed. Did something happen? Why did you suddenly call me here? He asked, bewildered. Nagato had been vague. He only told Yahiko to come immediately and didn't explain why. Looking at the peaceful streets of Rain Village, Yahiko suspected it couldn't be anything too grave. Nagato activated his Kenbunshoku Haki and found Yahiko quickly. Nagato, where's Sosuke-sensei? Why did you call me? Yahiko asked, expecting to see the teacher as well. Sensei is handling village affairs, Nagato said. Yahiko's confusion grew. Weren't they supposed to be invited to watch the chuunin exams? Why was Nagato helping administer Rain Village? Was the village so overwhelmed it needed outside assistance? Nagato led Yahiko away to a private place and explained. Hanzo is dead. Sosuke is now the real leader of the Land of Rain. Yahiko froze. The news kept getting more outrageous. How long had Nagato and Sosuke been gone to already control the whole village? And there were no signs of a violent takeover. Everything looked calm. Nagato then explained the whole affair, the invitation, the setup, and implicated Danzo Shimura in the plot. This invitation was a conspiracy, Danzo Shimura's conspiracy, Nagato said as he walked through the details for Yahiko. So that's why. No wonder Sosuke only brought you, Yahiko sighed with relief. If the situation was dangerous, sending someone too weak would have been worse. They would either be useless or actively become a burden to Sosuke. Yahiko, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have persuaded you that night to stay. You missed the last chance to meet Hanzo, Nagato said, guilt heavy on his face. They had expected this mission to Rain Village to be risky, but in reality, Mu Yue had handled things with ease. If Yahiko had been there, Mu Yue might not even have needed to act. Nagato himself could have protected him. It's all right. You were thinking about my safety. You don't need to apologize, Yahiko said with a small smile, waving it off. And I already know what I need to do now. Though he regretted missing Hanzo, hearing the truth about Hanzo's death and Sosuke's rise eased his doubts. At least in the end, he was truly Hanzo, the demigod of the Land of Rain, Yahiko said, relieved. Hanzo had not always been the saintly peacekeeper people imagined. He had made compromises and had selfish motivations. But his final choices convinced Yahiko that Hanzo deserved the title, and his reverence had not been misplaced. Nagato nodded in agreement. This whole episode had changed his view of Hanzo as well. Nagato took Yahiko to see Hanzo's portrait. The face in the painting didn't show someone who died violently. Hanzo appeared serene, almost as if he had passed of old age. No visible hatred or regret, only a relaxed expression. After learning that the Shinobi sect and Rain Village would deepen their exchanges, Yahiko promptly signed up with Sosuke. Now that the Land of Rain had some peace, their next task was to strengthen it. Yahiko wanted to work in Rain Village to help more of its shinobi understand the true shinobi sect. Land of Fire, Konoha. Hiruzen Sarutobi was processing documents when a sudden dry throat interrupted him. He kept his eyes on the papers and reached for the teacup on his desk, but his hand fumbled, the cup slipped, and it hit the floor with a clatter, shattering and spilling tea everywhere. Hiruzen set the papers down, took a slow breath, and touched his chest. "I haven't been overworking lately, so why would this happen?" he murmured, puzzled. For an instant he had felt his heart flutter. He frowned and called the Anbu by the door to come in and clean up the broken pieces. A lost teacup was a trivial thing, not some priceless heirloom. What bothered him more was the realization that he was no longer as steady as he used to be. Even holding a teacup felt suddenly uncertain. Standing before the wide window that overlooked Konoha, Hiruzen let out a soft sigh. Every one of them creates so many problems. Will I really be able to retire peacefully someday? From stepping into the Hokage role during Crisis up to now, he was tired. If a suitable successor emerged once the ninja world calmed, he wouldn't hesitate to pass the mantle. He had been at the top long enough. He wanted a simple life, fishing, teaching his grandchildren, maybe enjoying the second spring of old age, raising youngsters like Mu Yue into strong ninja. That night, as Hiruzen was almost asleep, a familiar voice called his name. "Old man, wake up! Mu Yue-sensei's calling you." Asuma shoved open the door and spoke. He had heard the same voice outside and recognized it as Mu Yue. Hiruzen dressed quickly and stepped out. Mu Yue coming at this hour could only mean something serious. Asuma wanted to follow, but Hiruzen waved him off. "Go to sleep," Hiruzen ordered firmly. If Mu Yue didn't also call Asuma, Hiruzen wasn't inclined to let him tag along. Asuma sulked back to his room. He wasn't afraid of Hiruzen, but he'd have gone with Mu Yue if Mu Yue had summoned him too. In the courtyard, Hiruzen found Mu Yue with a sorrowful expression that made Hiruzen's chest tighten. Mu Yue was usually optimistic and composed. To see this face told Hiruzen it wasn't a small matter. "Mu Yue, are you all right?" Hiruzen asked first. "Is it something with the Kenbun Shokuhaki lessons? You can take more time. There's no rush." Mu Yue shook his head. "Third Hokage-sama, thank you for your concern. I'm fine," he said, but then his eyes reddened. "It's Danzo-sama. He sacrificed himself." Mu Yue's voice dropped and his face twisted with pain. Hiruzen stared in disbelief. "You said Danzo sacrificed himself?" Only a few days ago they'd been joking over drinks. Now he was told Danzo Shimura was dead. How could he accept it? In wartime, it might be normal for someone you'd shared a meal with yesterday to die today, but Danzo had not gone to an obvious battlefield. Who in Konoha could have killed such a high-ranking figure in secret? Mu Yue nodded. Hiruzen's legs wavered and he took a step back. Rationally, hearing it from Mu Yue, a representative of the young ninja and someone once tied to Root, made it credible. Mu Yue had no reason to lie. Emotionally, though, Hiruzen resisted. Still, he was the third Hokage. He could not indulge in self-delusion. Mu Yue stepped forward as if to steady him. Hiruzen waved him off. He was only stunned by the shock, not truly incapacitated. "Where did he die? Was the body returned?" Hiruzen asked, voice low. "In the Land of Rain." "The body is currently at the Root base," Mu Yue replied. Besides Danzo-sama, most of the Root operatives there sacrificed themselves. Only one member of Root remains now. Mu Yue and Yamato could be considered Root by history, but they weren't on the official roster. They hadn't been openly Root members. Hiruzen rubbed his furrowed brow, forming theories. Danzo had warned him to watch the Shinobi sect and the forces in the Land of Rain. Now Danzo lay dead in rain. If Hiruzen had refused Danzo's suggestions earlier, perhaps Danzo had acted alone and gotten into trouble. "Do you know how Danzo died? Why he went to the Land of Rain?" Hiruzen pressed as they walked. Mu Yue shook his head. "He never told me the reason. He only said it was very important and asked me to help. He also told me not to inform the third Hokage. The scroll Danzo had given Mu Yue had only contained instructions to go, not the purpose." Hiruzen's face didn't change. That was so like Danzo, cautious, secretive, and often acting alone. "The one who killed Danzo-sama was Sosuke of the Land of Rain," Mu Yue said, his eyes reddening again, voice full of reproach. If I had arrived earlier, or if I had told the third Hokage, maybe Danzo-sama wouldn't have died. When I arrived, Danzo-sama was already gravely wounded. I used Flying Thunder God to bring him away, but it was too late. His injuries were too severe. My medical ninjutsu couldn't save him. I could only watch as he died. Hiruzen sighed, imagining Mu Yue's desperate joy in rescuing Danzo, and then his helplessness as Danzo slipped away. Mu Yue had been raised by Danzo and could not be indifferent to his death. Mu Yue, this is not your fault, Hiruzen said, putting a hand on the younger man's shoulder. Emotionally, he felt the loss of an old acquaintance deeply, but logically, it was Danzo's own choices that had led him into danger, not any failing of Mu Yue. Mu Yue's voice wavered, but if my medical ninjutsu had been stronger, maybe Danzo-sama wouldn't have. No one can perfect every skill, Hiruzen interrupted gently. If someone could, they'd probably be just an average ninja in trying to do everything. This isn't your failing. You're already excellent. In truth, Hiruzen suspected Danzo had walked into a trap of his own making. Even if Mu Yue had gone immediately, he might not have been able to stop it. The fault lay in Danzo's methods. As they spoke, they walked on toward the root base. Hiruzen steeled himself to see his old friend lying on the ice platform. 622. Inheritance. Danzo Shimura lay on the ice platform not in his usual black-gray kimono, but in the standard Konoha shinobi combat uniform. Hiruzen Sarutobi guessed that Mu Yue must have dressed him. Danzo's body bore no wounds or bloodstains, and the uniform itself was immaculate, as if it had been changed afterward. Hiruzen inwardly nodded at the gesture. Mu Yue had tried to make Danzo presentable in death. Still, no matter how well he was prepared, the sight of Danzo's pale, motionless face conveyed one unavoidable truth. He was dead. Even though Hiruzen had already been told by Mu Yue, seeing the body made a sorrow he had restrained break through. Decades of comradeship, of life-and-death moments shared, left a grief that words could not erase. Hiruzen thought of the last time they had met, a politicking conversation that had ended badly, and felt a private sting of regret. If he could choose again, he might not change his political stance, but he would have chosen not to argue that night. Did he say anything before he died? Hiruzen asked quietly, turning to Mu Yue, whose face was drawn and sorrowful. A shinobi with Danzo's tenacity would normally leave some last words. Mu Yue nodded, tears brimming but controlled. Lord Danzo's last concern was Konoha and the younger generation. Even in his final moments, he was telling me to protect the village. He refused my medical ninjutsu, Mu Yue added. He said he needed to preserve his chakra to prevent accidents. Those lines struck Hiruzen like echoes of the past. He was transported back to another bleak night, the Kumogakure coup, when he and Danzo had volunteered as decoys while Senju Tobirama stayed behind to cover the retreat. Tobirama's words had stuck with him. Protect those who admire the village and trust you, and cultivate the children who can be entrusted with the next era. Even facing certain death, Tobirama had shown no fear, only resolution. Danzo fulfilled the teacher's instructions, Hiruzen murmured. In his last breath, Danzo had handed on the same duty, to protect Konoha and prepare the next generation. And he had entrusted that duty to Mu Yue, a root-trained shinobi whom Danzo had cultivated. The sense of an inheritance passed down, a chain of wills, steadied Hiruzen. Mu Yue continued, Lord Danzo asked me to take his place leading Root to bear Konoha's darkness. Hiruzen's expression shifted. If anyone else had said Danzo wanted to hand Root to them, he might have dismissed it. But Mu Yue? There was no reason for him to lie. Root, at that moment, consisted effectively of only one active member. Making Mu Yue the head would make him commander without an army. Moreover, Mu Yue already held a special designation within Anbu that was effectively equal to a Root leader. His motive to invent such a claim would be small compared to the risk of exposure. From Danzo's perspective, Mu Yue made sense, trained by Root from childhood and powerful enough to rebuild it. What do you think? Hiruzen asked. Mu Yue, having shown his grief, now thought more rationally. Root was originally meant to train Anbu. Over time, it became what it is now. The Anbu training squad you have is functionally similar. Perhaps Root doesn't need to exist separately. Hiruzen explained what he meant. The training squad Mu Yue led could absorb the remnants of Root. Root members would be integrated as subordinates, and Root's assets transferred to the squad. He did not want Mu Yue to become a second Danzo. Mu Yue's future should be different. Disbanding Root immediately after Danzo's death felt insensitive at first, but Hiruzen framed it as a transformation, not an erasure. Root's spirit would live on within the training squad's mission to protect Konoha. Mu Yue hesitated, unwilling to seem to refuse Danzo even in death. After Hiruzen reassured him that Root's purpose would continue and that Danzo's will would not be forgotten, Mu Yue accepted the responsibility. Lord Danzo also said something strange, Mu Yue added, puzzled. He told me to be careful of Uchiha, Madara. Hiruzen's face tightened. Among the younger shinobi, Madara was a legendary name, a traitor defeated by the first Hokage. For those of Hiruzen's generation, however, Madara had been a living nightmare until Hashirama had stopped him. Are you sure you didn't mishear? Hiruzen asked. I remember every word, Mu Yue said earnestly. Hiruzen believed him. A dying man's final plea wasn't easily misremembered, and Mu Yue had been there. But even if Madara weren't truly dead, he'd be far too old to be dangerous now, Hiruzen said, thinking aloud. Then another possibility occurred to him. Could Madara have secretly trained an heir who acts in his name? If Madara had survived Hashirama, it would not be impossible for him to have left a successor behind. Did Danzo say anything else about Madara? Hiruzen asked. That's all he said, Mu Yue replied. He'd relayed Danzo's dying words and nothing more. Mu Yue had not mentioned another crucial detail. Danzo's body contained Hashirama cells. He decided not to reveal that here. Even if Hiruzen agreed to forbid any research, Orochimaru, a scholar of forbidden experiments and an ambitious rival, would not be easily kept from obtaining tissue. Given Orochimaru's status, resources, and obsession with Hashirama cells, it was unlikely any secret could hold. Mu Yue did not want to invite that fight. He preferred to handle it quietly, as he had with the White Zetsu incident. Hiruzen changed the subject. Did you engage Sosuke directly? How strong was he? No direct fight, Mu Yue answered. When I reached Lord Danzo, he was already wounded. I used Flying Thunder God to get us out, but I saw his ninjutsu. He's very strong. I'm not confident I could have beaten him. Hiruzen did not think the assessment exaggerated. Sosuke had defeated Hanzo using fire techniques. That alone marked him as a formidable opponent. You've been through a lot. Go rest. Hiruzen forced a smile and offered. Mu Yue bowed to apologize and then to Danzo before leaving the root base, his steps heavy. What a good child, Hiruzen thought. Mu Yue had no obligation to risk himself for Danzo. That he had done so and had brought Danzo home earned Hiruzen's deep gratitude. Any minor breaches of protocol were forgiven. Hiruzen then summoned the only other root member left at the base. There were too many unanswered questions. Why had Danzo gone to the Land of Rain? How had Madara, or Madara's name, become involved? Whether to exact vengeance or to protect Konoha, Hiruzen intended to untangle every thread. The remaining root member had even less useful information. He had simply been guarding the base for days and knew only that Danzo had gone to the Land of Rain. Has Danzo met anyone unusual recently? Hiruzen asked. The man only shook his head, bewildered. A low-ranking operative could not be expected to know leadership's movements. Bring me the recent confidential root files, Hiruzen ordered. He also called in Anbu to search the root base for clues. If Danzo's mind lacked too many protective measures, he would even consider asking a Yamanaka to view Danzo's memories directly, a disrespect to the dead, but the threat of Uchiha Madara and the safety of Konoha outweighed such scruples. Hiruzen worked through documents and interviews until 3 a.m. with no decisive breakthrough. He had duties the next day and could not let grief overtake reason. He handed the investigation to Anbu and went home to try to rest. Lying in bed, he closed his eyes and hoped that tomorrow would bring better news. Although neither the Land of Rain nor Konoha officially announced Danzo's death, both had attempted to conceal it. Word spread across the shinobi world with a speed that made secrecy pointless. The other great shinobi villages soon gathered this critical intelligence. 623. Village Ideas, Land of Earth, Iwagakure. In the Tsuchikage building, inside his office, Onoki read the intelligence report in his hands. A flicker of surprise crossed his face. Danzo Shimura is actually dead, killed by Sosuke, he murmured. This was beyond what Onoki had expected. His plan had been to use the Shinobi sect to sap Konoha's strength, and that plan hadn't even been set in motion yet. How had Konoha already clashed with the Shinobi sect, and why had a high-ranking Konoha official been killed? The surprise was pleasant, like waking to find a sapling planted yesterday suddenly bearing fruit. Then the next moves will be easier to arrange, he thought, smiling. Relief showed on Onoki's face. His scheme had a major weakness. The Shinobi sect must not learn of Iwagakure's involvement. Discovery would bring retaliation. Now, though, the open conflict between Konoha and the Shinobi sect might even work in Iwagakure's favor. Their interference could be blamed on the new sect, earning the sect's gratitude. If the Shinobi sect could withstand Konoha's pressure, Iwagakure could support them long-term and continue to irritate Konoha. Onoki savored a cup of imported Fireland tea, the first good news he'd had in a while. Worse than Danzo's death had been Roshi's disappearance. A Jinchuriki like Roshi might be dispensable as a person, but the foretales inside him was a strategic asset, an enduring, revivable force no ordinary genius could match. Roshi's quiet, discreet departure from the village during wartime had been a bitter blow. Now, by contrast, Danzo's death had spread rapidly through the shinobi world. That publicity made its impact on Konoha greater than Roshi's secretive exit. Onoki suspected the news had been deliberately amplified. This couldn't spread so fast by accident. Which village would benefit most from making Danzo's killing public? Tsunagakure or Kumogakure came to mind. Tsunagakure bordered the Land of Fire. Tsunagakure would have been among the first to learn the news. Onoki suspected Tsunagakure might take advantage of Konoha's misfortune. Even if he personally had no intention of waging war with Konoha now, once he learned of Danzo's death, he immediately ordered Iwagakure forces to aid in spreading the information. He didn't want war, but he didn't want others to miss the opportunity either. As he guessed, several villages took an interest. Across the seas, the third Mizukage convened a high-level meeting at the Hidden Mist. Their defeat in the recent war still stung. They had not conceded, and some in the mist saw Danzo's death as a chance to redeem themselves and recover the honor of the ninja swords. "Share your opinions," the Mizukage said with narrowed eyes and a smile. The Hidden Mist Anbu leader spoke first. "This is a good opening for the village. Danzo's death robs Konoha of a strong figure and dents their morale. Konoha now has a new opponent in the shinobi sect. They'll have to commit forces to respond." A hawkish advisor, his lower face wrapped in bandages, glanced subtly at the Mizukage. He'd long favored renewed war with Konoha. Genma, however, was cautious. "This is too aggressive," he said. "Danzo's death damages Konoha's prestige, but it isn't a crippling blow." Genma argued that a rushed attack could provoke a harsh Konoha counterstrike. If Hiruzen had fallen, Genma would agree, but Danzo's death, while embarrassing, didn't amount to the loss of Konoha's top leadership. The room shifted. Previously, Genma's supporters fell quiet as the Hawks pushed their case. The Jonin squad leader, usually neutral, spoke up in favor of action, and Genma's caution now seemed isolated. "It's an opportunity, but risky," Genma repeated. "We shouldn't be hasty. Observe the situation and prepare." The third Mizukage nodded. He wanted glory. An outright defeat of Konoha would erase the Mist's shame and make him a legendary Mizukage. Yet, he understood the need for a calculated approach. "Then let's first deploy a contingent to the Land of Waves," he decided. The Land of Waves was the closest island tongue, the Land of Fire, and an easy launch point for operations without immediate detection. It was weak and manipulable, suitable for staging future moves. Land of Wind, Tsunagakure. In the Kazakage's office, Rasa read the same report and pondered it aloud. "This shinobi sect is a hidden danger," he said, then allowed a thin smile. Danzo's death would stir the shinobi world. Konoha had been on top since the war began. If that continued, they would attract allies and influence. Now, cracks in Konoha presented an invitation too tempting to ignore. Tsunagakure had been battered by internal strife and repeated pressures from Kumogakure. The Land of Wind's daimyo was openly displeased. Rasa wanted Tsunagakure to profit from Konoha's misfortune. He called his Anbu and ordered, "Increase intelligence operations in the Land of Fire. Send more spies." Land of Lightning, Kumogakure. The meeting there was already more decisive. "Konoha has fortified the borders with the Land of Hot Water. We'll approach by sea to the Land of Rice Fields. then enter the land of fire from there, Dodai announced, laying out a flank that would be harder for Konoha to detect. The plan included diversionary teams operating in the land of hot water first, to convince Konoha the attack would come there. The broad outline of an invasion was sketched quickly. The 3rd Raikage then addressed 4th Raikage A. You will lead the operation. A accepted seriously. Battle was both perilous and the best training ground. He hesitated over one point. Killer B. B had not yet fully mastered the Eight Tails' power. Should he remain in the village to train or come along? Take him, the 3rd Raikage said gravely, and protect your brother. A nodded. B was not his biological sibling, but their bond was deep. A would guard him. Land of Fire, Konoha. Hiruzen Sarutobi woke suddenly, staring up at the familiar ceiling. It was only a dream, he sighed, relief flooding him. The dream had been strange. Danzo volunteering to be a decoy, Tobarama agreeing and not letting Hiruzen go alone. Hiruzen shook it off, finished his morning routine, ate, and went to the Hokage building to work. He'd already ordered the Anbu to investigate Danzo's death. It would be irresponsible to rush to the root office himself. Still, he fretted. Danzo had been his friend for decades. If Uchiha Madara were involved, Hiruzen knew a thorough investigation was required. He couldn't risk being used as a pawn. The village's safety came first. In the afternoon, an Anbu entered the Hokage's office. 3rd Hokage-sama, the intelligence has been compiled. We found new discoveries in several hidden secret rooms. Hiruzen felt a lift in his spirits at once. 624. Bad news keeps coming. We found some secret scrolls. According to their contents, Danzo-sama appears to have worked with an unknown force and the Rain Village to kill Sosuke. An Anbu handed the retrieved scrolls to Hiruzen Sarutobi with both hands as he reported. The name that immediately came to Hiruzen's mind was Uchiha Madara, but he kept his expression calm. Until the investigation was clear, the name Uchiha Madara could not be leaked. It would only stir up trouble. The Uchiha already had a history of attempted coups, and now Danzo Shimura's death was being linked, inexplicably, to Uchiha Madara. Even Hiruzen, who had long tried to remain impartial, felt a seed of suspicion toward the Uchiha. He did not think the whole clan was corrupt, but he could not dismiss the possibility that Madara's influence had spread inside it. For the sake of Konoha's stability, Hiruzen did not want this information known, not even to the other senior advisors. Hiruzen opened the scroll. He recognized Danzo's handwriting at once. It was a secret document written in Danzo's own hand. After reading it carefully, he dismissed the Anbu. There was very little about the unknown force, and nothing explicit about Uchiha Madara, but the scroll outlined Danzo's plans to surround and kill Sosuke. Mu Yue, who had already searched Danzo's quarters thoroughly before Hiruzen saw it, had controlled what Hiruzen would learn. For example, the scrap about wood release had already been handled by Mu Yue. When the Hokage's office was empty, Hiruzen formed hand signs and channeled chakra. The characters on the scroll shifted and revealed hidden text. To an outsider, it was just a normal scroll, but Hiruzen, a friend of Danzo's for decades, noticed differences in the concealed writing. Hiruzen, if you see this secret scroll, I should have been killed. That was the first line he read. Hiruzen let out a long sigh. If Danzo were still alive, Hiruzen would never have had the chance to order Anbu to search route so thoroughly, and he wouldn't have found this scroll. Danzo admitted the operation was dangerous, and that even with all his precautions, he risked death. Yet he insisted on going. If it succeeded, Konoha would remove a grave threat, and he might uncover secrets about Uchiha Madara. At the mention of that name, Hiruzen's gaze sharpened. Danzo wrote that Madara's methods were terrifying, capable of entering and leaving even Root's most secret areas freely, wielding great influence throughout the ninja world. Hiruzen was surprised. Danzo had discussed cooperation with Uchiha Madara in Konoha? Danzo's suspicion was plain in the writing. If Madara could move freely en route, he could likely move freely among the Anbu as well. How had he bypassed the Great Barrier? The whole village was protected. Any entrance should have been detected. Danzo's conclusion that the Uchiha could not be trusted and that Madara was behind plots against Konoha radiated from the scroll. Danzo even warned to keep a close eye on Utatane Koharu, Homura Mitokado, and Orochimaru to prevent Madara from using them to destroy the village. The scroll ended with, Hiruzen, protect Konoha. Hiruzen rubbed his brow. Danzo's words made the threat of Uchiha Madara feel very real, but Danzo himself clearly did not know much about Madara. Most of the scroll was speculation built from Danzo's fears. Hiruzen thought Danzo had been overconfident, believing himself capable of handling the danger and yet failing to anticipate the consequences. He put the scroll away and summoned the Anbu. Bring Mu Yue to the Hokage's office. The Anbu departed swiftly and returned with Mu Yue. The younger man greeted Hiruzen respectfully, though fatigue showed in his eyes. He'd probably not slept well. Hiruzen remarked on the strain of the situation. Mu Yue shrugged that a few hours of lessons were nothing, and that, seeing the Hokage still at work, he couldn't stop either. Hiruzen handed Mu Yue the scroll. Mu Yue, aside from Hiruzen, was the only one in Konoha who knew of Uchiha Madara, and he had a long and complicated relationship with Danzo. Mu Yue read the scroll and feigned surprise. In reality, he already knew its contents. His sealing techniques exceeded Kushina's, and his perception, a combination like the Byakugan and the so-called transparent world, let him uncover the tricks Danzo used to hide things on the page. Mu Yue had not acted on the hidden content because it would not disrupt his plans. With Madara drawing attention, Konoha would not focus so heavily on the Shinobi sect. Danzo was cautious, Mu Yue said. Even on a secret scroll, he wrote his doubts but left out some facts. He didn't mention Wood Release or the Rinnegan, as if he only intended this mission to deal with Sosuke. Perhaps he was saving the rest for his last words. Hiruzen asked Mu Yue to describe the scene of Danzo's death in detail. Since Danzo had claimed his death would have something to do with Madara, Hiruzen suspected Sosuke might have ties to Madara, that the whole thing might have been a plot between the two. Only Sosuke and Danzo-sama were fighting, Mu Yue reported. The others were far away. There was no sign anyone else moved in. Danzo, it seemed, had underestimated Sosuke and overestimated both himself and Madara. Hiruzen pondered the report. Danzo's written fears were speculation. Mu Yue's account was what actually happened. Hiruzen concluded that these facts exposed faults in Danzo's thinking. He then changed the subject abruptly. Your training squad should take on a new recruit. It's not right to have only one member at a time. Shisui, Hiruzen thought, was young but steady, a promising talent. The Uchiha posed a problem, but a public Anbu inquiry into the clan would be destabilizing. Hiruzen preferred another approach, use the Uchiha to police themselves. Mu Yue's 2 Uchiha disciples were trustworthy. If Obito didn't fit the Anbu temperament, Hiruzen would arrange for both to join Mu Yue's special training squad. Shisui does have the makings of an Anbu, Mu Yue agreed. He understood Hiruzen's intention. It would not harm Shisui. In fact, the training squad could be a springboard for him, develop his abilities, and build his record. The arrangement would differ from Itachi's route. Itachi had joined the regular Anbu, whereas Shisui would join Mu Yue's exclusive training squad, effectively Mu Yue's Anbu. As a mentor, Mu Yue wouldn't let his student be mistreated. After giving his advice on the future of the training squad, Mu Yue left the Hokage's office. Hiruzen continued handling affairs and ordered the Anbu to widen their investigation beyond Konoha to the Land of Rain, Danzo's place of sacrifice, where more relevant information might be found. Before the Anbu could uncover anything significant about Danzo's death, bad news arrived in rapid succession. News of Danzo-sama's death has leaked. Kumogakure in the Land of Hot Water is acting suspiciously. The number of spies in the Land of Fire has surged recently. As Hiruzen felt the situation worsen, the wooden door of the Hokage's office was shoved open, and Utatane Koharu and Homura Mitokado entered together. Hiruzen, Danzo is dead, Homura said. His voice edged with sadness. He and Danzo had not been as close as Danzo and Hiruzen, but they had served together and shared many councils. Even someone who disagreed with Danzo's politics could be grieved by his passing. I know, Hiruzen said, rubbing his forehead. He had tried to keep the matter secret, but the news was already everywhere, a sign that Sosuke or Uchiha Madara was taking the initiative. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Koharu asked sharply. Danzo was a senior leader. Hiruzen explained briefly. He had intended to investigate further before informing the council. The situation was complex, and Madara's moves were swift. He led them to the conference room and presented the confidential material he had gathered, explaining Danzo's actions but not revealing the name Uchiha Madara. He described an evil ninja organization as the source of the trouble in TED. "How foolish!" Koharu exclaimed. "Such important information wasn't reported to the village. He acted alone." She was angry enough she could have struck Danzo's remains. Danzo had risked the village and dragged Konoha into crisis. "Danzo did sacrifice himself for the village," Homura interjected gently, reminding her that the dead deserved respect. Koharu fell silent when she saw Hiruzen's stern look. Their relationship mattered, and she did not press the point. Hiruzen moved on to concrete measures. Warn Kumogakure to be cautious, tell Orochimaru to keep a low profile, and increase patrols along the borders. "We must break Kumogakure's arrogance and show that Konoha is invincible," Homura added. If Konoha appeared weak now, many would take advantage of it. The goal was to scatter the unrest caused by Danzo's death by demonstrating strength. After the meeting, Hiruzen did not go straight home. He returned to the Hokage's office, stood by the tall window overlooking the village, and set down his pipe. A thin spiral of smoke drifted up. "I need to give Mu Yue more responsibility," he murmured. He had hoped Mu Yue's training squad would grow naturally, but with the situation unraveling, Konoha needed a stronger Anbu presence, and Mu Yue would be central to that. 625. Impact word that Danzo Shimura was dead had spread through the shinobi world. Hiruzen Sarutobi issued a measured public statement confirming it. To preserve Danzo's reputation and the authority of the leadership, Hiruzen framed the death not as a casualty of a rogue mission, but as the result of a self-sacrificial act while conducting an intelligence investigation. The announcement rattled Konoha. Ordinary villagers speculated about who Danzo really was. He had been one of Konoha's senior figures, but most citizens only knew the Hokage by name. Danzo had done the dirty work in the shadows and rarely appeared in public, so he was unfamiliar to the average person. Most shinobi, however, did recognize him. As the man who ran route and handled Konoha's covert operations, Danzo was powerful and feared, but among many, his overall reputation was mixed. Most people cared less about Danzo's death than about its consequences. He had controlled a web of interests. Losing him could unsettle internal and external balances. Internally, the fallout was minimal. Hiruzen had been warned early enough to prepare, so Konoha didn't fracture. Externally, though, the ripple was worrying. Prominent clans like the Nara quickly received word that Kumogakure was taking moves against Konoha. Adding to the unease, reports from outside Konoha blamed Sosuke of the Land of Rain for killing Danzo, while Hiruzen's statement insisted the investigation was ongoing. Conflicting information created an awkward atmosphere in the village. The usual calm had been disturbed. Even the training atmosphere in the southern border forest felt different. Lord Danzo is dead. Yamato sighed as he sat on a large rock. Having spent time with Mu Yue, he realized Danzo wasn't the figure he'd imagined, yet he felt gratitude. Danzo had raised him for a long period. That couldn't be erased. Of Mu Yue's students, Yamato was the only one who felt genuine sorrow at Danzo's death. Danzo? That Danzo Shimura? Who was he exactly? Obito asked, scratching his head. He hadn't been born during Danzo's prime, and he'd never learned much about the man. He was Konoha's Fire Shadow assistant, Kakashi answered. Fire Shadow assistant? I haven't heard much about him, Obito said, puzzled. Probably because there wasn't anything worth hearing, Kakashi replied coolly. True war heroes like Mu Yue or Minato Namikaze left pages of stories behind them. Strength alone didn't earn fame. Luck and seizing opportunities did. Obito felt Kakashi was right, and he allowed himself to mourn this unknown assistant for precisely 0.01 seconds. As a future thought, Obito clenched his fist. If he became Hokage, he wanted the kind of legacy that would fill history books. The idea of students someday memorizing his exploits thrilled him more than studying ever could. He kept the thought to himself. He knew Kakashi would mock him, and he wasn't yet in a position to refute that. Don't take any missions for now, Mu Yue told his students. Wait for my arrangements. From the shifting currents in the shinobi world, Mu Yue could sense Uchiha Madara's impatience. Madara was getting old and desperate to find an heir for his resurrection plan. Under such pressure, Mu Yue reasoned, Only by staying close in Konoha could Obito and Shisui avoid being dragged into Madara's schemes. Ordinarily, a Jonin could handle missions alone or lead a team, but Obito and his companions were an unusual case. Too young enough to break Konoha's Jonin age record, and complicated by Mu Yue's involvement. Minato had suggested having Kakashi and the rest lead teams to train them in leadership. Mu Yue rejected that idea, listing reasons to convince him. All the students nodded in agreement. Mu Yue then spoke privately with Shisui about a new training squad. Shisui's expression flickered with conflict. He could feel the uniqueness of this unit. It was like an Anbu, only more secretive, and it might assist his plans to reform the Uchiha. But joining would mean giving up idle time, and he'd have less chance to train with Mu Yue, Ito, and the others. If you want to join, I can make you a squad leader, Mu Yue said. If you don't want it, don't force yourself. Choose honestly. Hiruzen hadn't insisted Shisui join the squad. He'd merely said Shisui was a good candidate. As Shisui's teacher, Mu Yue couldn't solve every problem, but he could help carry some of the burden. Mu Yue-sensei, I'll join, Shisui decided after thinking it over. This was an opportunity few Uchiha would ever have, especially to be inside a confidential department led by someone like Mu Yue, where performance could be rewarded. It was unlikely any other Uchiha would be offered such a position. Good. I'll let you know when to report, Mu Yue said. Thanks to Danzo, the training squad already had a base, the former Root headquarters. Hiruzen hadn't reneged. Apart from some useless classified documents, the assets of Root had been transferred to the new department. Although the training squad had only a couple of members for now, its resources were substantial. Shisui thanked Mu Yue and began his training. When the session ended, Mu Yue didn't go back to the main district. Instead, he walked over to Yamato's small house. Mu Yue-sensei? Yamato blinked, puzzled. I came to visit your home today. Aren't you going to welcome me? Mu Yue said with a smile. Of course I welcome you, Yamato replied quickly, touched. Mu Yue had a knack for sensing mood and offering comfort. Danzo had arranged Yamato's current home, a small place on the far outskirts. The training fields were also remote, so Yamato's house was actually the closest to where they worked. Inside, Mu Yue headed straight for the kitchen. If a student was down, he believed a good meal could help. Yamato tried to refuse, but Mu Yue persuaded him, and Yamato sat at the table to wait. Do you want to go to ninja school? Mu Yue asked as he set out the last dish. Ninja Academy usually took students at 5 or 6. Yamato was already 8. If not for his unusual origins, he should have been at the academy long ago. Mu Yue had thought about enrolling him before, but with Danzo in the picture, there was no easy way to explain it. To ninja school? Yamato asked, trying not to stare at the delicious food. He thought Mu Yue should eat first. If you graduate from the academy, you'll be a proper Konoha shinobi, Mu Yue said, helping himself to a piece of meat. Technically, Yamato had no official registration. Danzo had created a cover identity for him. He was recognized only by Danzo, not by the village registry. Danzo could have arranged official documentation, but Yamato's weakness made Danzo worry. Hiruzen would notice. How long do I need at the academy before I become a shinobi? Yamato asked, taking a bite and smiling. If you're quick, a month, or maybe 2 weeks. If you're slow, 6 years. I'd recommend staying at least 2 years, Mu Yue said after a moment's thought. Yamato had been unlucky. He'd been captured and used as a test subject in experiments with Hashirama cells that had almost killed him. He'd barely survived, lost his memories, and then fallen under Danzo's long psychological influence. Mu Yue wanted Yamato to experience a normal childhood. With Yamato's current level, academy lessons would be a huge adjustment, like something out of a novel. Hearing 6 years made Yamato blink. His life so far had felt shorter than that. Mu Yue-sensei, do I have any chance of becoming a wood release user like the first Hokage? Yamato asked suddenly. It's very difficult, almost impossible, Mu Yue answered tactfully. What made Hashirama unique wasn't just wood release, but the terrifying magnitude of his chakra. Even the chakra of a tailed beast pales beside Hashirama's vast reserves. So there's still a sliver of a chance? Yamato asked, resolute. I want to be like the first Hokage, protect the village and stop wars. I want to go to ninja school, graduate as fast as I can, and then please train me even harder, Mu Yue-sensei. Danzo's death had unsettled him, but but Yamato worried more about the future. What if Mu Yue sacrificed himself in turn? He wanted power to protect the people and things he cared about. Mu Yue looked a little helpless. Sometimes precocity was a burden. Why were they all so responsible? Children under 10 should be allowed to be children. Even if you want to be like the first Hokage, it doesn't happen overnight, Mu Yue said, tapping Yamato with 2 fingers. You'll need at least a year at the academy. Land of Hot Water, Konoha Ninja Force Base. So he just died like that? What a pity, Orochimaru murmured, setting down the documents in front of him. A faint ripple passed across his usually impassive face. He had learned of Danzo's death from Konoha's announcement and from outside reports. The experiment can only be paused, Orochimaru sighed. He didn't mourn Danzo as a friend. Danzo had treated him as a tool, and Orochimaru had done the same in return. What troubled Orochimaru was whether his experiments could continue and whether their collaboration had been exposed. They'd crossed many lines together. If the trail led back to him, Orochimaru might lose any claim on Konoha's power, and Hiruzen's tolerance would be strained to its limit. He had planned to return to Konoha to destroy incriminating evidence, but Kumogakure's sudden movements forced his hand. Changing command before a battle was taboo. Without a solid reason, the village would not approve his return. Realizing the difficulty, Orochimaru didn't even bother requesting to go back. He knew it would be refused. Now he fervently hoped Danzo had covered their tracks. If not, Orochimaru would have little choice but to defect. He had too much invested in his work in Konoha to start over. Even a genius had limited energy, and focusing on Danzo's affairs and the looming war with the Cloud strained his capacity to analyze everything. Meanwhile, a Kumo force quietly landed by boat in the land of rice fields and began its operation. 626, Special Dark Area completed. In the northern land of rice fields, a large Cloud Ninja force had gathered. 4th Raikage, their commander, stood before them all. No matter what problems you encounter, you must reach the Land of Fire's border within the planned time, he said with a grave expression. This detachment numbered 1,200 shinobi. Such a large unit moving through a small country like the Land of Rice Fields would be impossible to hide, so they split into 12 teams and marched staggered, one after another. The Land of Rice Fields bordered the Land of Hot Water. If they were discovered too early, Orochimaru's forces could rush in and wreck all their plans. Mission accomplished, the captains of each team answered. Depart, A nodded and gave the order. The advance teams dispersed quickly in different directions. At the same time, Cloud Ninja already in the Land of Hot Water began their own operation. They did not hide. They showed themselves near towns and launched aggressive attacks on Konoha shinobi, as if trying to wipe Konoha out of the Land of Hot Water. The Konoha shinobi there hurried to prepare for combat. This was the kind of show Kumogakure always put on before a large-scale operation. Dispatch more patrol teams and focus on the border between the Land of Hot Water and the Land of Rice Fields, Orochimaru ordered. Intelligence mattered as much as strength in shinobi warfare. He could not act rashly before learning more about the Cloud Unit's movements. Konoha, Land of Fire. To make up for Root's loss of manpower, Hiruzen Sarutobi gave Mu Yue a hard assignment: form an ambush squad that could perform in wartime, and do it fast. It was a daunting task, more difficult than any ordinary teaching post, but Hiruzen did not simply drop the order and walk away. He gathered retired Anbu and allowed some willing veterans to rejoin, placing them under Mu Yue's command. After a period of rehabilitation, these veterans would be ready for Anbu duties. Hiruzen also personally selected promising youths from the major clans to join the training team. While ordinary shinobi are not necessarily weaker than clan members, clan shinobi typically come with a more complete system of training. With these preparations in place, the team began to take shape. Shisui received his notice from Mu Yue. Wanting to make a good impression, he checked his appearance carefully before leaving. He was young, and many Anbu glanced at him as he walked to the equipment department, but Mu Yue had already explained things in advance, so no one kicked him out for looking like some child of privilege. This is your complete set of equipment. If it's damaged, return and get a replacement, an Anbu from equipment said, handing Shisui a long box. Thank you, Shisui said, taking it with both hands. He went to the changing room and opened the box. Inside were 3 items, a fox mask, a long sword, and beneath them a standard Anbu combat uniform. The training team was a specially established Anbu unit, so its gear matched Anbu standards. Shisui put on the uniform and mask, then locked his civilian clothes in a locker and headed to the captain's office. He knocked softly on the wooden door. Enter. Mu Yue's voice was so familiar, it settled Shisui's nerves. He stepped into the office. Teacher Mu Yue, he blurted, then corrected himself. Captain Mu Yue. No need, Mu Yue said with a smile. When there's no one else around, you can be yourself. Those words eased Shisui. The new training team base still felt like the old root base, dark, oppressive, and the Anbu atmosphere always made him a little uneasy. Anbu members use code names on missions, Mu Yue said, taking out a small notebook. You should choose one now. My code name is Knight, Mu Yue added. He had kept his old root code name. Names meant little to him, and his reputation rendered them almost irrelevant. After a moment, Shisui decided, call me Fire. He wanted to be a spark for the Uchiha, a light to guide the clan, and a blaze to burn away their difficulties. Mu Yue confirmed, made the entry, and then glanced at the time. Go meet your colleagues. They walked to the training team's conference room. It was still early, so no one was there when they arrived. As time passed, members filed in and greeted Mu Yue one by one. Only Anbu, of squad leader rank and above, were present. Apart from Shisui, the other squad and team leaders were rehired veterans. They already knew Mu Yue's appointment from Hiruzen's instructions. When the 10th Anbu took his seat, Mu Yue cleared his throat and scanned the room. He outlined the plan for the first month. The regular members would undergo intensive training to boost intelligence work and combat skills, while squad leaders and above would focus on mastering the darkness breathing technique. The old veterans had missed that technique when they first served. Now it was mandatory for Anbu, and part of Mu Yue's job was to bring them up to speed and have them teach the younger recruits. An Anbu squad leader glanced at Mu Yue's youthful face and thought, admiringly, that despite his age, Mu Yue's future was boundless. No one in that room recalled a younger Anbu captain. Shisui took notes in a small notebook. The meeting lasted about an hour. He was used to clan meetings in the Uchiha, where the head mostly listened, but here, Mu Yue did most of the talking. After it ended, Shisui put his notebook away and went in search of his squad. Squad 7, he muttered, consulting a mental map of the base. He soon found their quarters. All his squad members had already arrived. Masks hid their faces, but Shisui recognized them from the files. The ponytailed male was Nara Shiosui. The woman with a white-furred ninkin at her side was Inuzuka Midori. The third was Aburame Nao. Shisui was pleased with the trio. Nara Shiosui's shadow techniques offered superb control. Inuzuka Midori had excellent taijutsu and a loyal ninkin for the front line. Aburame's insect techniques made him adaptable, useful for intelligence gathering and chakra absorption in combat. Together, their synergy could be more than the sum of their parts. Whose child is this? Inuzuka Midori blurted as Shisui approached, eyeing his small stature. Nara Shiosui cleared his throat at her. Someone coming by at this time was usually their superior. Despite his height, Shisui's neat Anbu uniform didn't make him look like a brat from a privileged family. If you say it like that, you're insulting him, Midori amended quickly. Becoming Anbu at such a young age, he must be amazing. He's a training team member, Nara said. That's different. Shisui removed his mask and introduced himself. I am Uchiha Shisui. My code name is Fire. I'm your squad leader. Recognition flickered across Nara's face. Shisui was well known, the youngest prodigy from Konoha, famed for his performance in the youth martial arts tournament. Becoming a squad leader here suited him. You should pick your mission code names, Shisui continued. They'll be your names in the field, so choose carefully. Inuzuka Midori brightened. Then mine will be Super Wild Dog Warrior. Shisui stared. Too long. 1 or 2 characters is better. Fine dog, Midori said, a bit disappointed, but practical. Nara glanced at his clan symbol and said, Deer. Insect, Aburame replied, short and to the point. Shisui nodded. He moved on to the next item on his agenda. Follow me, he told them, and led the 3 to the training ground. They needed to learn one another's strengths and weaknesses. Even if they weren't going on missions immediately, familiarity and combat training were essential. They headed toward the field, the small squad forming up behind their young leader, ready to begin the work that would turn them into a wartime Ambu unit. 6-27, Lightning Fire Nation, whoosh. Nara Shiosui, Inuzuka Midori, and Aburame now were all breathing hard. Squad leader Shisui, you're ridiculous. There's just no way to win, Inuzuka Midori gasped, thoroughly convinced after being slammed around. She was the best at taijutsu among them, but Shisui had routed her in close combat. Nara Shiosui's shadow imitation technique couldn't land a single blow on the agile Shisui, and Aburame now watched helplessly as her insects were incinerated before they could close the distance. As expected, Nara Shiosui thought with a sigh. Each of them was a solid chuunin on their own, and together their skills complemented one another, usually enough to take on a standard jonin. But against Shisui they had been dough in his hands. There had been no opening to win. Aburame now only nodded. Train hard, and someday you'll have the kind of strength I do now. Shisui said encouragingly. Shouldn't you be saying, train hard, then you'll surpass me? Inuzuka Midori shot back. Shisui smiled but said nothing. He didn't want to lie. It wasn't condescension, just an honest assessment of how wide the gap felt. Let's take a break. This afternoon there's Mu Yue sensei, Captain Mu Yue's class, Shisui added. Even a squad leader like him was a student under Mu Yue. In the training squad, rank didn't exempt anyone from learning. Inuzuka Midori's eyes widened. She'd been to a special session Mu Yue taught before and had been impressed. Yay! We get Teacher Mu Yue again, she exclaimed. Nara Shiosui felt a flicker of anticipation too. In a place like the training squad, would Mu Yue's lessons be different? At noon, the four of them went to the squad's cafeteria. After lunch came free time, naps, chatting, or finding a quiet corner to think. Shisui chose solitude, replaying the morning in his head. During the fight, I should have held back more, given them more chances to act. And when I explain, I need to slow down, he murmured, counting the things he'd done poorly. On the surface, he looked composed, but inside he wasn't entirely comfortable. He'd always been on the receiving end of instruction. Suddenly being a squad leader and teaching others made him uncertain. Learning and teaching were different skills. Still, from the way Midori and the others had reacted, his performance had been acceptable. They didn't dislike him. Meanwhile, at the Land of Rice Fields border, all members of the 11th Squad have arrived. No incidents, reported a dark-skinned Kumogakure Jonin to the 4th Raika. A nodded. Let the troops rest immediately. We move late tonight. Night marches were stealthier, and people were more vulnerable when relaxed. Ideal conditions for an attack. The Jonin relayed the order. I hope we run into Minato Namikaze, Killer Bee said indignantly. If I see him, I'll show him what we can do. Minato Namikaze had become truly famous after clashing with the AB combo, and Bee fancied that Minato had stepped on them to rise in the world. He wanted his older brother's revenge. Don't underestimate him, I warned. There's no chance he stood still all this time. A's voice grew solemn. He defeated many who called themselves predecessors, but he'd lost twice. Once to a mysterious hidden mist shinobi he'd never been able to identify, and once to Minato Namikaze. The mist opponent remained an unsolved problem, but Minato's skill had genuinely made the Raikage wary. It's not underestimating, just inner confidence. No fear, no retreat, because we are Kumogakure's AB combo. Killer Bee replied in his trademark rap cadence. A looked at his younger brother with a deadpan expression. B was talented in every way, except for his mouth. Rest well. What's coming next is a life-or-death war. I said, and with a swift hand chop, he ruffled Killer Bee's head. B nodded seriously, then hopped onto a tree branch, stretched out, and immediately fell asleep. I wonder when he'll truly grow up, A muttered, shaking his head. As commander, A couldn't relax completely. He inspected Ted, troops, and waited for the remaining units. The last team arrived at 3 in the afternoon without incident. Relief flickered across A's face. The plan was unfolding as hoped. If they launched now, Kumogakure would become the second village to invade deep into the Land of Fire's main territory. Unlike the Hidden Mist's opportunistic strike, they were breaking through the border, planned and precise. A finished his early evening meal at 5 and rested. Most of the Cloud Shinobi were sleeping, only a few stayed on watch. At 10:30 p.m., A rose and ordered the final preparations. At midnight, dressed in Kumogakure battle gear, 4th Raikage A stood before 1200 Cloud Ninja and issued the command in a voice like thunder, "Invade the land of fire." Without hesitation, the disciplined soldiers surged forward in formation, melting into the black of night. Their skin tones provided natural camouflage. In the dark, they were nearly impossible to spot, though most sentries wouldn't have to rely on poor eyesight alone. A large number of ninja are approaching from the land of rice fields, the border patrol shouted when he saw the advancing force. He fumbled a signal flare from his pouch and prepared to fire. Sworn 28, worsening situation, whoosh! Just as a Konoha patrol fired a signal flare, a bolt of blue lightning struck. Bang! Pain exploded through the patrolman's body. His pupils widened as he was hurled backward like a cannonball. "Finish them quickly!" 4th Raikage barked, and the Kumogai Jonin closing in obeyed without hesitation. Konoha had not stationed a large force nearby. Its ninja numbers were stretched thin, but there were still patrols guarding the northern border of the Land of Fire. A's first objective was to neutralize those border defenses, to blind Konoha to what was happening in the north. Kumogakure never expected to conquer Konoha with only 1,200 shinobi. They were the vanguard, sent to open the way. Whoosh! Whoosh! The Kumogakure Jonin surged forward, sweeping through the area and cutting down every Konoha shinobi in sight. Far fewer patrols moved at night than during the day, and under the coordinated assault, the defenders had no time to send word back. At best, they could warn nearby squads, but that did no good. Still, in such a tense wartime climate, silence was itself alarming. When several patrols suddenly failed to report in, Konoha took notice immediately and dispatched elite units from nearby to investigate. How did Orochimaru miss this? Even when the Iwa force was about to move on the northwest front, he didn't pull a single man out of his contingent. Kumogakure slipped in undetected. Even the usually composed Homura Mitokado found his tone sharp as he read the grim intelligence coming from the front. Danzo Shimura was dead, and Konoha's intelligence network, Root, had collapsed with him. That loss made the village vulnerable, and the other great nations were watching closely. If Danzo hadn't perished in the Land of Rain with Root, Orochimaru might have sniffed out Kumogakure's movement, Utatane Koharu muttered, still bitter about Danzo's unauthorized actions. If he wanted to seek death, fine, but he had left Konoha in a difficult position. The important thing now isn't to point fingers, it's to fix this, Hiruzen Sarutobi said, tapping the table. There's an enemy force of unknown size inside our borders. This threatens not just Konoha, but the whole Land of Fire. Ninja warfare had no rules about sparing the homeland. Given half a chance, Kumogakure would happily drag Konoha into full-scale war. Why don't we have Jiraiya bring his troops back from the northwest and have Orochimaru move his from the northeast? The two combined ought to be able to clear Kumo out of the north, Utatane suggested. Jiraiya's force was in the grass country to the northwest, Orochimaru's in the Land of Hot Water to the northeast. Two converging contingents might overwhelm even a 2,000-strong invasion. We can't pull Jiraiya's men, Hiruzen replied at once. Our relationship with Iwagakure is fragile. If Jiraiya withdraws, Iwagakure may quickly assemble a force and strike. Though Iwagakure had struggled in past wars with Konoha, it still posed a serious threat. Then send Minato or Mu Yue and pull some jonin from different squads to assist, Homura suggested. Many Konoha jonin could lead a force, but only a few had the experience to reliably defeat an invading army. This must be resolved fast, otherwise how do we explain this to the daimyo? The daimyo were the nominal rulers, but Konoha as the Land of Fire's military was responsible for its defense. An invasion would be seen as Konoha's failure. Make it Minato, Hiruzen decided. For battlefield slaughter, both Minato and Mu Yue were capable, but Mu Yue's talents were needed for training. If Minato could be spared, Hiruzen preferred not to pull Mu Yue away from his duties. News of Danzo's death had caused all the major shinobi nations to pour spies into the Land of Fire. Word of Kumogakure breaking the border quickly reached the leaders' desks elsewhere. Hidden Mist Village, Mizukage's office. The third Mizukage read the report and smiled thinly. As I thought, someone couldn't sit idle and made the first move. The third Mizukage want to humble Konoha and reclaim Hidden Mist's lost honor and its stolen blades, but he had been waiting for a pretext to act. "Bring Yagura," he ordered. Despite Yagura Karatachi's crushing defeat the last time, the Mizukage blamed not Yagura but the unexpected strength of the opponent. Before Mu Yue's appearance on the battlefield, few would have expected him to be as formidable as he proved. "Lord Third Mizukage," Yagura greeted, bowing respectfully. The third had always groomed him as a future fourth Mizukage, and their bond was strong. "This time you will command the force," the third Mizukage said with a smile. "Recover everything Hidden Mist lost, twice over." Gratitude and a heavy pride showed on Yagura's face. The defeat had hollowed him. He had trained harder, studied strategy, and pushed himself to close the gaps in his abilities. "I will not disappoint the village. This time we will crush Konoha's forces," he vowed. "Good. Confidence is key," the third Mizukage said. "When you reach the land of waves, don't rush. Wait for my orders." Kumogakure had only just entered the land of fire and had not yet clashed in earnest with Konoha. The third Mizukage was in no hurry. The shinobi world was in flux. Opportunities might present themselves elsewhere. Hidden Mist's involvement in the war was about gaining a share of the continent's spoils, not reckless vengeance. Hidden Sand, Kazakaji's office. Rasa set down his report with a look of disappointment. Still no large-scale battle between Konoha and Kumo. He had hoped the two would tear each other apart. Bloodshed, any bloodshed, so long as it weakened both. Tsunagakure had already been hit hard by internal strife and Kumogakure's assaults. Rasa was eager to see Kumo suffer further. He certainly did not want a stronger neighbor across the thin river land. He'd prefer a dependent one who would need Tsunagakure's help. In contrast, Iwagakure's reaction took a different tack. In the land of rain, Six Paths City bustled with new prosperity, and Kitsuchi found himself quietly stirred. "In today's ninja world, who doesn't know Sosuke?" he murmured, reflecting on how Six Paths City had grown from a backwater to a thriving town. Sosuke himself had become a legend, surpassing even Hanzo the Salamander in renown. Kitsuchi's admiration was evident. He made his way to the shinobi sect stronghold to meet Sosuke. Kitsuchi often served as Iwa's liaison with the sect, and was well known there. He found Sosuke waiting in the reception room. "We of Iwagakure apologize for the misfortunes brought on the sect. We didn't expect Konoha to harbor designs against the land of rain," Kitsuchi recited, a speech he had clearly prepared. Watching him deliver it, Mu Yue thought Kitsuchi must have done poorly in disguise class back in the academy. "It may not be Konoha coveting the land of rain," Mu Yue replied with a faint smile. "Perhaps it was just Danzo Shimura acting on his own bias." An Iwagakure jonin who had come with Kitsuchi leaned forward. Rumors were rife that Konoha had tried to seize Sosuke's Ninshu heritage and sent Danzo to assassinate him, but most shinobi doubted such a thing. The 5 great villages possessed countless secret techniques. It seemed beneath them to act for an unknown heritage. Accusations of Konoha's suppression of the rain were slightly more believable. "Just a personal guess. The matter happened suddenly, and I haven't had time to investigate fully," Mu Yue said. He knew more than he admitted, but could not reveal it. The Iwagakure jonin suspected Sosuke was hiding something, but pressed no further. They could try to leverage the shinobi sect, but they had no way to deal with Sosuke directly. If he were pushed too far and disbanded the sect, and then went rogue in the land of earth, Iwagakure would be in real trouble. Kitsuchi shifted tack. "Our cooperation with the shinobi sect has brought Iwagakure considerable gains. We want to deepen that cooperation." "What do you mean by deep?" Mu Yue asked, feigning interest, though he already guessed the pitch. Iwagakure had invested heavily in Six Paths City and expected returns. "Expand ninja training, jointly establish ninja schools, and we can entrust some of Iwakure's missions to the shinobi sect," Kitsuchi said. The sect's manpower was limited. Major actions drew attention. Recently, Iwagakure had noticed the sect planning to open a ninja school, and now they offered to support it. "And?" Mu Yue prompted, smiling. "To protect our partners' interests, Iwagakure will send forces to guard the shinobi sect and ensure the safety of the cooperation," Kitsuchi added, imagining the sect becoming almost like a small Iwagakure outpost. "Sosuke, how do you feel about this deeper cooperation?" Kitsuchi asked, watching him closely. He believed his offer generous, essentially guaranteeing the sect protection and patronage. Iwagakure's conditions are generous, Mu Yue said with a smile. But, his tone shifted. I refuse. If the sect accepted such terms, Iwagakure would have legitimate grounds to deploy troops within it. Mu Yue could not allow that. Even Hanzo would have opposed turning the Shinobi sect into a satellite of a great village. Kitsuchi's smile froze. He had not expected Sosuke to reject him outright. 629. Balanced breathing. Why refuse? Is there something you aren't satisfied with? Kitsuchi asked before he could stop himself. Onoki had stressed the importance of deep cooperation with the Shinobi sect. It was a key step in Iwagakure's plan against Konoha. Kitsuchi had come prepared to negotiate. Mu Yue smiled faintly. Iwagakure's offers are generous, but they don't fit the Shinobi sect's current needs. Expanding the scale of ninja training can raise income, but our priority now is training quality. A rash expansion would conflict with our development strategy. We've already agreed with the Rain Village to co-found a ninja academy, so we can't establish another one with Iwagakure. And as for commissions, the Shinobi sect simply doesn't have enough manpower to take them on. He paused, then added, regarding protection, we are capable of defending the Land of Rain ourselves. Iwagakure need not trouble themselves. Each point Mu Yue made shut down another line of argument Kitsuchi had prepared. If Mu Yue had just rejected piecemeal offers, there might have been room to haggle, but he was denying the core terms of deep cooperation, terms Kitsuchi and his superiors had no authority to change. Kitsuchi glanced at the Iwagakure jonin who had accompanied him. The strategist, Onoki, had sent a negotiator to help. The jonin merely shook his head minutely, helpless. If the issue had been a single clause, they could have relaxed conditions or sweetened the deal. But Mu Yue's refusal was aimed at the heart of the cooperation. Only Onoki could alter that. There was nothing the jonin could do. My apologies for making you come all this way for nothing, Mu Yue said politely. The Shinobi sect had already accepted money from Iwagakure, received support, and even had plans that might include seizing Iwagakure's Jinchuriki. On balance, the sect had gained a lot. Cooperation is about common goals, Kitsuchi replied with a wry smile. If we can't find common ground, your refusal is understandable. He had expected as much. Sosuke was not one to follow convention. The jonin who had accompanied Kitsuchi looked at him oddly. Others might have put on polite airs, but Kitsuchi genuinely seemed to accept Mu Yue's point of view and consider the matter from his perspective. Hey, you're the third Tsuchikage's son. Is this really appropriate? The jonin teased, half serious. After a few friendly words, Mu Yue politely escorted them out of the reception hall. There was nothing left to discuss if he had no intention to cooperate. Back in the living quarters, the Shinobi sect had prepared for them. Kitsuchi first checked the area carefully. Then, with a tone of urgency, he told the Iwagakure jonin, Lord Kitsuchi, the Shinobi sect is vital to the village's plans. We can't just give up. The Shinobi sect was a perfect chess piece for Iwagakure. Good relations, a shared enemy in Konoha, and now a thawing relationship with the Rain Village that could be leveraged. With someone like Sosuke plus the Land of Rain's ordinary shinobi, their combined strength was exceptional among common villages. But Sosuke flat out rejected our terms. He doesn't want to cooperate. Kitsuchi said helplessly. He admired Sosuke, but his priority was his village. Let's contact the third Hokage and report this, the jonin said. The terms would have to be changed drastically, but that decision was above their rank. Only Onoki could decide how far to push. Land of Fire, Konoha, Training Squad Base. The darkness breathing technique enhances physical abilities by combining focused breathing with bursts of chakra. The deeper and more concentrated the breathing, the greater the improvement. It's comprehensive. It even accelerates wound recovery, Mu Yue explained as he corrected the squad member's posture. His teaching schedule was strict. For the first 2 months, regular members received lessons 3 afternoons a week, with other time spent on reconnaissance and intelligence skills. Squad leaders and above trained 5 evenings a week, from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., and also joined the regular members' sessions. Hiruzen Sarutobi wanted both speed and quality. Mu Yue had to raise the intensity. He couldn't create elite divisions out of nowhere. Training takes time, but funding and elixirs from Hiruzen help meet those demands. What a secret technique. It uses breathing. This must pair perfectly with my beast mimicry. Inuzuka Midori was thrilled. Her beast mimicry ninjutsu made her body more like a ninkin. Their breathing was stronger than a human's. 1 + 1 might be greater than 3. She instantly entered her beast mimicry state to temper her body and began taking exaggerated deep breaths. You're doing it wrong. Concentration isn't just gulping air, Shisui said, shaking his head as he pointed out her mistake. Darkness breathing had been adapted with traits similar to lightning breathing rather than flame, but all breathing techniques shared fundamentals. Shisui had already mastered breathing methods and could guide a beginner. Midori knew that. She was just testing you, squad leader Shisui, Midori answered, pleased. As expected, you didn't disappoint. Shisui inwardly wondered how he'd been tested. He finally understood why Mu Yue liked tapping Obito's head. Now he somehow wanted to tap Midori's too. But she was taller, and the gesture would look unthreatening, so he kept his hand down. After 2 hours, to improve efficiency, Mu Yue appointed Shisui as his assistant. Together they corrected everyone's faults. Despite being the youngest present and looking a little like a child wearing adult clothes, Shisui earned the respect of the trainees. They could see he genuinely knew what he was doing. Mu Yue wasn't bolstering a disciple's status for show. Lecture completed. Intermediate level. Rewards: breathing technique comprehension increased. Darkness breathing 60, basic breathing 30, lightning breathing 19. The lecture's rewards were tallied after the evening lessons. Mu Yue briefly reviewed his notes and went home. Lecture rewards differed from life quest or disciple improvement rewards. They accumulated slowly. 10 sessions with a mediocre B might only add 20 chakra points each, but 10 times a week could add up to a useful pool. I still need a stronger transformation technique, Mu Yue thought. Darkness. Breathing would boost the squad's combat edge, but better transformation would improve their disguise and intelligence-gathering capabilities. He couldn't teach his full transformation technique. It was overpowered and nearly impossible to teach, but he could borrow elements to craft a practical, more effective disguise technique. That would satisfy Hiruzen and help make up for Root's losses. He could develop it in spare time. Instead of starting that immediately, Mu Yue pulled out his notes on breathing technique development. The training squad had only just begun darkness breathing. The transformation technique could wait. He wanted to push his enlightenment on sun breathing. Since flame breathing was closest to the sun breathing in the Demon Slayer lineage, his plan was to redevelop flame breathing by absorbing traits from other basic breathings, running lightning speed, rock's power, water's fluidity, until flame breathing approached true sun breathing. He worked late, well into the night. Breathing techniques as system-localized secrets didn't have external teachers in the ninja world. Mu Yue, with mastery of multiple perfect-level breathing techniques, had to think this through alone. Let's try it, he murmured. He set his breathing, slow and even, and then poured chakra into the form. But as he tested the hybrid, disappointment flickered over his face. The blend had smoothed extremes into mediocrity. Not as strong as rock, not as fast as lightning, balanced but unremarkable. Is this the wrong path? He wondered, switching briefly to rock breathing and frowning. His concept had been to synthesize strengths. The result had averaged them into something without a defining specialty. Half an hour later, he sighed and rolled his notes into a scroll. He hadn't achieved sun breathing yet, but the work wasn't a total failure. The new technique lacked weaknesses. It wasn't as strong as rock, but faster. Not as swift as lightning, but stronger. He decided to name it balanced breathing, a form that gave roughly equal enhancement across the board. I'll keep researching it when I have time, he told himself. He'd already invested time. Balanced breathing was worth exploring further. Minato Namikaze had been operating in the grass country, tracking Iwagakure movements. Just as he anticipated a few days' rest, a new mission arrived and he had no time to return to Konoha. He led part of Konoha's force stationed in the grass country northward into the Land of Fire. Konoha needed action against Kumogakure forces in the north. On arrival, Minato met Orochimaru's support detachment and Konoha's teams to assess the situation. Kumogakure doesn't look like they're preparing for a major engagement, Nara Shikaku, deputy commander, briefed him. There are traces everywhere in the north, but in small squads. The total numbers shouldn't be large. Their activity is concentrated in the northwest, and the AB combo has recently been sighted there. Kumogakure may be planning something in that region. Minato considered their limited options. If Kumogakure intended to avoid a large-scale clash, dispersing their own forces to hunt small squads was necessary. He decided to send 2/3 of his troops to work with the border units against those active squads, keeping a reserve rather than scattering everything. A few days later, reports came in that the small squad's missions had largely succeeded, but Minato and Shikaku were oddly unsettled. The AB combo hasn't shown up at all. Where are they hiding? Did they return to Kumogakure? Shikaku asked, studying the map. Then, new intelligence arrived. Kumogakure groups had been detected moving into the land of hot water. Shikaku's eyes narrowed as an idea struck. The vanishing AB combo infiltrated from the north and went active in the northwest, he mused. Could the many small Kumogakure squads in the northwest be a diversion? Maybe their main objective isn't the Konoha forces in the Land of Fire at all. Maybe they're aiming for our forces in the Land of Hot Water. Minato's expression shifted. If Kumogakure pushed a large force into the Land of Hot Water while sending elite teams like the AB combo to flank them, Orochimaru's troops there could be in danger. Shikaku, Choza, Doto, come with me, Minato ordered, choosing elite shinobi to move quickly to the Land of Hot Water and intercept the elite team led by the 4th Raikage A. Even if A had departed days earlier and was trying to stay clear of Konoha's surveillance by moving slower, speed and timing would be crucial. 630. Battle with the AB combination. Near the Land of Fire border, a force of about 70 ninja from Kumogakure moved steadily through the forest. 4th Raikage I halted them and turned to the sensory ninja at his side. Motomu, sense the surroundings, he ordered. As a flanking party, their most crucial task was to avoid detection. Their plan was at its final stage, and I would not let a moment's carelessness ruin it. Yes. Motomu closed his eyes, formed hand seals, condensed his chakra, and activated his sensory jutsu. There's nothing nearby. Wait, a powerful chakra is approaching. Motomu had almost finished reporting when a familiar presence hit him. It's Minato Namikaze, the sensory ninja called out. He would never forget that chakra. Minato had nearly killed him once during a mission when he and I had encountered the yellow flash. A's eyes narrowed. Did he discover our plan this quickly? He frowned. In their assessment, Minato should have been busy chasing the Kumogakure guerrillas in the northwest. The Cloud Ninja looked to their leader for orders. Stop advancing. Prepare for battle, I decided. Minato was fast, but not every Cloud Ninja could match his speed. The moment Motomu sensed Minato Namikaze, their sneak attack was compromised. Cloud Ninja drew swords and kunai. Minato, sensing the halt, slowed his pace to let his teammates catch up. He always ran up front with his speed and sensory advantage. I watched Minato and the Konoha commanders, Nara Shikaku among them, approach. If we can keep Minato here, the plan still has some value, I thought. The northwestern Kumogakure squads would withdraw that night. Even though they couldn't fully stop Konoha's response, holding Minato would make the operation a partial success. Minato stepped forward and produced 2 Flying Thunder God kunai. We meet again, he said plainly. He and the AB combination had clashed before, both on the battlefield and in missions. Their duels had always ended the same. Neither could decisively beat the other. Minato's Flying Thunder God speed and reflexes made him nearly untouchable, but A, in Lightning Release Chakra mode, was extremely close at short range. With Lightning Release, nature enhancing his reaction nerves, and Killer B at his side, Minato had no easy solution to the new AB combo. Perhaps there won't be a next time, A said coldly, glancing at Killer B. This was B's first fight since becoming the Eight Tails Jinchuriki. Minato could not be expected to know what that meant. They could use the information gap to try to catch him off guard. B stiffened, suppressed a rap, and gave a small nod. Then let's see, Minato replied, serious now. Even an incompletely developed AB combo demanded his full strength. He noted the numbers. They have 72 men, 19 more than us, he thought. This was no one-on-one duel. It was a clash of elite teams, and Minato had brought fewer men in haste. Shuriken and kunai sang through the trees, exchanged in precise volleys. These were seasoned warriors. Neutralizing thrown tools was easy for both sides. Each displayed their specialty techniques to intercept the other's projectiles. Blue lightning danced over Ai as he activated lightning release chakra mode, projecting an oppressive aura through the forest. He watched Minato carefully and kept an eye on a flying thunder god kunai that had been knocked down nearby. That kunai, once close enough, would let Minato teleport and close the distance in an instant. Minato did not teleport with the flying thunder god technique right away. He used body flicker to move to the right and tossed out 2 more flying thunder god kunai. "B! I!" shouted, and in the next instant transformed into a streak of lightning, charging Minato. Killer B calmly produced 2 kunai and threw them. They struck Minato's kunai, intercepting the flying thunder god blades. Minato appeared at the location of one of the first kunai, exactly where I expected him to be, and A adjusted mid-charge to attack. At such speeds, others only saw a blur of blue, but Akimichi Doton had perfect coordination with Minato. "Partial expansion jutsu," he shouted. Channeling Yang release chakra, Doton's body ballooned into a 30-meter-tall giant, materializing between I and Minato and blocking the path. A's expression showed no surprise as he continued in his lightning form. "Lightning style, kill!" he roared, delivering a lightning release ninja body technique chop. Doton tried to retaliate, but A's speed outpaced him. The blow sent the giant reeling. He was knocked backward and finally collapsed, sprawling on the forest floor. Minato was busy too. He formed a Rasengan in each hand, flashed in front of 2 Cloud Ninja, and sent them flying, straight into fatal impact. Lightning and fire techniques followed as both sides escalated. "Lightning release, electric light pillar," one of A's men cried. "Fire release, great fireball technique," Konoha responded. Nara Shikaku, who had been waiting, suddenly used his shadow sewing technique. His shadow burst like a black spider lily and reached out at nearby Cloud Ninja, controlling 6 of them at once. A's speed made Shikaku cautious about trying to control him with shadow jutsu, so the Hokage's ally concentrated on the better Cloud subordinates instead. "Mind disturbance dance technique." Inoichi Yamanaka followed up, and 5 of the 6 controlled Cloud Ninja turned on their comrades, or themselves, in terror. Before the disoriented Cloud Ninja could react, a massive fist loomed. "Partial expansion jutsu." Akimichi Choza appeared, his body swollen, and slammed into one of the Cloud elite. Blood burst. The ninja was sent through the trees and smashed to a halt. Choza retracted his expansion, and his fist shrank back to normal. Minato watched the opening with approval. "It's a good thing the 3rd Hokage arranged Ino Shika Cho as my deputies," he thought. The 3 families together were a force not to be underestimated. Back in the clash, Ai's sheer power sent 2 Konoha shinobi flying. His eyes swept the battlefield coldly, as if choosing who to strike next. He couldn't catch Minato, but slaughtering a few Konoha was effortless. Kunai whizzed toward Ai. Minato would have neutralized the Cloud forces faster if he could focus solely on them, but he couldn't stand watching A pick off his comrades. A dodged with lightning speed. Even if Kunai couldn't phase him, a Rasengan placed on him or a Flying Thunder God mark would complicate matters. Then Shikaku, Inoichi, and Choza, in perfect coordination, each produced a Flying Thunder God kunai and flung them from 3 directions toward A's vicinity. Minato had given them those kunai before they set out, both for emergency teleportation and to create openings in battle. Under pressure, A's frown deepened. Fighting Minato was difficult because he had to guard against kunai thrown by both Minato and Minato's teammates. At a ninja's speed, it was impossible without a visual technique to tell whether a fast kunai carried a Flying Thunder God seal. A dodged hard, unwilling to be caught off guard. Minato suddenly appeared beside a Cloud Ninja and killed him with a Rasengan. One of the kunai aimed at A stuck in the ground nearby. Since it hadn't been thrown by Minato, A ignored it, unaware that it was also a Flying Thunder God kunai. Get lost! Killer B launched himself at a Konoha shinobi with a lariat, sending him flying, then wielded multiple swords in a strange fluid stance, cutting down several surrounding Konoha. He fought with the fierce focus of a man in the thick of the fight, seemingly unaware of a flying thunder god kunai stuck in the earth a few paces away. A had meant to warn him, but thought better of it and simply condensed chakra silently. Minato, seizing an opening, appeared behind Killer B with a Rasengan ready. If an enemy revealed a weakness, Minato had no reason not to strike. Taking B out could destabilize the AB combo. At the strike's brink, terrifying tailed beast chakra erupted from B. Thick octopus-like tentacles sprouted behind him, wrapping protectively around his body. A suddenly transformed into a lightning bolt and surged at Minato. Partial expansion jutsu! Akimichi Doton swung a giant fist toward A to cover B's defense. A's impatience showed. He hammered a lightning-charged punch, blasting Doton away again and singing his huge fist. That instant of contact was enough. Minato had completed his Rasengan and triggered Flying Thunder God to leave. He's the Eight Tails Jinchuriki, and he can use the tailed beast's power. Minato realized, surprised. If B had not erupted with tailed beast chakra, Minato's Rasengan would probably have killed him instantly or left him grievously wounded. As Minato gathered chakra for another attack, the octopus tentacles snapped away from B. He had flung them off, and B distanced himself from the kunai in the ground. Even as an opponent, Minato couldn't help admiring B's calm decisiveness. "Brother, sorry, I leaked info but didn't get results," B said as he approached I. "Good thing you're okay," A grunted. "The yellow flash is not easy to deal with." In the fighting, I had observed Minato's taijutsu and speed had improved, perhaps more than theirs. "Retreat toward the land of rice fields," A ordered without hesitation. The fight with Minato and the skirmish between subordinates were reaching a stalemate. Continuing would produce uncertain losses. On enemy territory, the land of fire, such a commotion would eventually draw more Konoha forces. B erupted with tailed beast chakra again, unleashing giant octopus tentacles to cover the Cloud Ninja's withdrawal. A pushed his lightning release chakra mode to its limits, glaring so fiercely that any pursuers would think twice before chasing. Minato and Shikaku exchanged a look and pursued, but not at full speed, keeping a measured distance as the rest of the Konoha force followed. They chased to the border with the land of rice fields before finally stopping. The Konoha team looked to Minato and Shikaku. "They still have the strength to counterattack," Minato said. "We can't press deeper." A and B were both still in good condition. Minato saw that further pursuit would be pointless, and their mission had been accomplished. With fewer men, they had stopped A's flanking maneuver. Shikaku nodded in approval. Minato relayed the battle report and organized the cleanup of remaining Cloud Ninja in the Land of Fire, awaiting orders from Konoha leadership. Looking up at the bright moon, Minato thought, "My taijutsu still needs work. I should ask Mu Yue about advanced breathing technique." Mu Yue had taught him basic breathing, saying that maintaining a highly focused, constant state would let him learn more advanced secrets. Minato had reached the constant state back in the grass country, but never found time to seek Mu Yue again. After this fight with the AB combo, he had noticed shortcomings and wanted to consult his teacher. If Mu Yue had been beside him the moment he teleported next to B, Minato felt confident he could have killed B even through the octopus defense. Chapter 631, Mu Yue, the second wood-release ninja. He actually refused. Onoki fell into thought as he read Kitsuchi's report. As the architect of the plan, he knew how valuable the Shinobi sect and Sosuke's cooperation could be, and he had offered terms he thought generous. He had expected the possibility of refusal, but not such a categorical across-the-board rejection. According to Kitsuchi, Sosuke had virtually turned down every condition. "Is there something I'm missing?" Onoki muttered. Sosuke's reaction didn't match Onoki's expectations. Right now, Sosuke should have been eager for Iwagakure's backing. Most of the ninja world had noticed Danzo Shimura's death, but only Iwagakure, the village that regarded the Land of Rain as a strategic chess piece, had observed another detail. Hanzo, the legendary demigod, was dead too. Onoki suspected Hanzo's death was connected to Danzo and Konoha. If Sosuke had killed Hanzo, the Rain village couldn't possibly continue to cooperate with him. A coup was another possibility, but given Sosuke's prior behavior and the Rain village's outward calm, a coup seemed unlikely. So why, having lost Hanzo and alienated Konoha, would Sosuke refuse Iwagakure so decisively? Onoki couldn't make sense of it. Didn't Sosuke fear a Konoha counterattack? Konoha wouldn't have to try hard, just pull the force it kept stationed in the grass country, already a deterrent against Iwagakure, and strike the rain. The border defenses would be pierced easily. Or is he holding out for a better offer? Onoki wondered. Sosuke was not Hanzo. He had suddenly risen to prominence, and Onoki wasn't confident he fully understood Sosuke's thinking. A knock sounded at the Tsuchikage office door. Third Hokage, these are the latest battle reports from Kumogakure and Konoha, an Anbu reported, entering with Onoki's permission. The intelligence was set on Onoki's desk, and the Anbu left. Onoki skimmed the reports and frowned. Kumogakure's movements looked serious. They'd launched diversionary teams attacking the northern Land of Fire, then pulled back after Konoha intercepted, while simultaneously sending a force to engage Konoha's contingent stationed in the Land of Hot Water. Onoki spread a map across the desk. If Kumogakure's force in the Hot Water region could defeat the Konoha troops there, the entire northern Land of Fire would be open to them. If Kumogakure succeeds, Iwagakure gains more freedom of maneuver, he mused, stroking his goatee. Jiraiya had been thwarting Iwagakure's moves in the grass country. If the north fell, Konoha's forces in the grass country would be compromised, exposed to attacks from both front and rear. Iwagakure could either press into the Land of Fire openings or launch a naval strike against Kumogakure from the Land of Hot Water. Ninja villages have no permanent friends, only permanent interests. If aiding Kumogakure served Iwagakure's interests better, Onoki wouldn't hesitate. Still, his instinct leaned toward striking at Konoha. Konoha had grown complacent after winning the previous two great wars. We can try offering better terms first, he decided, and began drafting a new order for Kitsuchi. If they could bring the Shinobi sect over, the combined forces in the Land of Rain would at least keep Konoha occupied. Land of Fire, Konoha. Minato Namikaze let out a relieved sigh as he looked at the familiar giant wooden gate. Even a battle-seasoned shinobi felt battlefield pressure. Because Minato had personally requested it, Ino Shikacho had taken most of the force to support Orochimaru. Minato had returned to Konoha escorting the wounded. His superiors had approved, no surprise, given how Konoha had long used his mastery of the Flying Thunder God technique for S-rank missions and emergency tasks. If Konoha needed the busiest jonin, Minato would always be among them. After reporting the mission status to Hiruzen Sarutobi in the Hokage office, Minato briefed him on the Kumogakure incursion. The numerous small teams in the northwest and central north were diversions. They withdrew swiftly after we intercepted the elite team led by the AB combo. Debriefings were procedure. Hiruzen sipped his tea and chuckled. Thanks to your speed, Minato, the force in the Land of Hot Water might have suffered a setback without you. Konoha had many powerful shinobi, but Hiruzen took the most comfort in two of the youngest, Mu Yue and Minato. Their weakness was only their youth and relative inexperience. It was mostly because Shikaku discovered it in time. Minato deflected modestly, then took his leave. Hiruzen watched Minato's retreating back and wondered which role to reserve for him after the war. With the older generation unreliable or absent, he was now considering between Minato and Mu Yue as future pillars, though he intended to train them for a few more years before passing the mantle. At home, Minato straightened the house, then knocked on Mu Yue's door. Not home. I'll go find Kushina. When no one answered, he went to see Kushina instead. She was in her room, studying sealing techniques. Minato, you're back, she greeted him with a bright smile and threw herself into a hug. The world's getting crazier. The village feels different. I thought you'd be even busier. I took short leave, so I'll be in Konoha for a little while, Minato replied, ruffling her red hair. He would normally be deployed to Orochimaru's front or sent back to the grass country to investigate Iwagakure, so a break was welcome. Kushina beamed, then frowned when Minato admitted the real reason he'd requested leave. I need to learn a ninjutsu from Mu Yue. Her smile froze. Jealousy flared. Was she really second to a technique? She puffed her cheeks and stared at him indignantly. Minato quickly explained, My speed is enough, but against opponents with special defenses, my attacks can be ineffective. On the battlefield at Iwagakure, my Rasengan couldn't break Roshi's lava armor when I used the melting-style chakra mode, And earlier, against the AB combo, my Rasengan was blocked again. If it had succeeded there, the battle would have gone very differently. He spoke sincerely. If I can shore up this weakness, I'll protect the village better. And I'll protect you. Kushina's irritation melted. She punched his chest playfully. Minato used a small chakra burst to steady himself, and laughter replaced the moment's tension. They resumed their usual affection, the day turning sweet. At 5:30 p.m., Minato went to Mu Yue's house again, but Mu Yue wasn't back. He checked the doorstep every 10 minutes through 6:30 p.m., and then waited reading quietly until well past 10. When he finally heard activity next door, he walked over and saw Mu Yue entering, door open. Mu Yue smiled and invited him in. The training squad's been busy getting back on track, so I stay late sometimes, Mu Yue said, pouring tea. He kept a small kitchen at the squad's base for convenience. Did you return to Konoha today, Minato? Yes, at noon. Minato accepted the tea and nodded. He hesitated, then admitted his reason for lingering that night. I've completed the constant state training for the basic breathing technique you taught me. I want to learn its advanced secrets. Mu Yue considered and then offered 3 paths: wind release breathing, flame breathing, or yang release breathing. Minato listened as Mu Yue explained. Flame breathing carried all the basic breathing enhancements plus firepower. Yang breathing offered no hand sign healing and Akimichi-like boosts, useful, but not suited to Minato's style. Most enemies couldn't touch him, so instant healing wouldn't change much. Wind release would let him unleash instant wind-based attacks, sharp enough to cut through hard materials, and that fit his needs best. That's fine, Mu Yue agreed. Wind release breathing suited Minato. At Mu Yue's insistence, they moved to the nearest training ground and began. With the current turmoil, you won't have much time in Konoha, Mu Yue observed. I'll be freer after this busy period, so I can teach. They trained until 1 a.m. Afterwards, Mu Yue made a late snack, and Minato left full of gratitude. It's great to have a friend like Mu Yue, Minato thought as he went home. Mu Yue, however, didn't stop. He studied sealing technique for another half-hour, washed, and then finally went to bed. Studying breathing and sealing at night had become a habit. Skipping it felt wrong. It's time, Mu Yue thought as he lay down. I can demonstrate wood release properly now. He had requested the wood release data some time ago, and, as Konoha's shining genius, it was time to act. The next morning, after his Kenbenshoku hockey class, Mu Yue went straight to the Hokage building and opened the door to the office without knocking, excitement written all over his face. Hiruzen looked toward the door, mildly irritated at the lack of manners. When he saw Mu Yue, a faint smile creased his features. You haven't become like Danzo, refusing to knock now that you have Root's legacy, have you? Third Hokage, Mu Yue blurted, hardly able to contain himself. I think I've successfully developed wood release. When Hiruzen Sarutobi heard Mu Yue's words, surprise swept across his face so quickly that his earlier displeasure vanished. He pushed himself up from his seat without waiting to be asked and demanded, What do you mean, seems to have developed wood release? Either you did or you didn't. Wood release wasn't an ordinary Kekkei Genkai. It was the bloodline limit only ever seen in the ninja god, Senju Hashirama, and its appearance carried enormous weight. If Mu Yue had truly awakened wood release, Hiruzen would have to reconsider everything he'd planned for the young man. Mu Yue formed a few seals in silence, gathered the chakra for wood release, and a tender green shoot suddenly burst up through the surface of the wooden desk in the Hokage office. The sight of a living branch growing out of an already made desk made Hiruzen's pupils constrict. He leaned forward, compelled to inspect it closely. The branch looked alarmingly alive, impossibly so for a finished piece of furniture, and the sight sent a monstrous wave of astonishment through him. He actually succeeded, Hiruzen muttered, unable to hide his amazement. Mu Yue's talent had always been extraordinary, but this was something else. Wood release hadn't been seen since the era of the ninja god. For decades, there had been no sign of it, and looking back over the centuries, it simply hadn't reappeared. Could anyone in this age rival Senju Hashirama, the man famous for wielding wood release with unmatched power? And yet here it was. Mu Yue had manifested wood release right before Hiruzen's eyes. A new unexpected thought pushed up in Hiruzen's mind. If Senju Hashirama possessed wood release, and now Mu Yue did too, then why couldn't Mu Yue become the next Hashirama? With Mu Yue's current trajectory, he might very well surpass Hiruzen in his prime. In the current era, that would make him unrivaled, especially since there was no Uchiha Madara to rival such a figure. Is this really wood release? Mu Yue asked, releasing his seals. Yes, Hiruzen said decisively, the single word carrying a kind, approving softness that hadn't been there before. His gaze on Mu Yue shifted. The look in his eyes grew almost tender. The more he studied Mu Yue's face, his eyes, the nose, the hair, the more Hiruzen found himself thinking of the fourth Hokage. He laughed softly and sighed. Mu Yue, I had confidence in you, but to actually see you develop wood release, your talent approaches that of the first. This is remarkable. Hiruzen remembered how the descendants of the Senju had trained for generations to awaken wood release, and how Konoha had poured resources into studying Hashirama's cells, all to no avail. And yet Mu Yue, relying only on the writings and remnants left by Senju Hashirama, had managed to unlock it on his own. Sometimes, Hiruzen thought, you can plant and coax all you like, and nothing blooms, and yet another seed falls where you least expect it, and becomes a shade-giving tree. I'm just lucky, Mu Yue said, waving a hand and smiling. A flash of inspiration. That's all. You mastered ice release by chance as well? Hiruzen teased. Maybe my flashes of inspiration happen a bit more often than for most people, Mu Yue replied, keeping the tone light. Hiruzen stroked his beard and chuckled. Well then, isn't that your special talent? He settled back down in his chair and, remembering something, added, How's the training squad doing lately? The instruction is going smoothly. We should see preliminary results in about 2 months, Mu Yue answered. Good. With you leading the training squad, I'm relieved, but don't overwork yourself. You must make time to improve your own abilities as well. Hiruzen's expression grew serious. Producing another wood release user for Konoha would be more consequential than any route operation. I understand, Mu Yue nodded. As he rose to leave the Hokage office, Mu Yue paused, turned, and offered a small apology. Forgive me, third Hokage. I got carried away just now and forgot to knock. Hiruzen waved it off with a smile. If Mu Yue really could become the next Hashirama, Hiruzen would probably excuse him from knocking forever. Still, he thought, Mu Yue was not Danzo. Watching Mu Yue walk away, Hiruzen couldn't help but think about Senju Hashirama's legendary power, the way Hashirama could clap his hands and instantly raise an entire forest. The news that there was a second wood release user was, to Hiruzen, even more significant than the war intelligence Minato Namikaze had brought. The deterrent value of another wood release wielder exceeded that of any tailed beast Jinchuriki. After leaving the Hokage building, Mu Yue went home. He would normally head straight to the training ground, but Minato Namikaze needed to learn wind breathing, and Mu Yue had promised to teach him. Mu Yue spent an hour explaining the theory in his living room, then made a quick lunch before taking Minato to the training field. Minato had a strong aptitude for breathing techniques. He'd already brought basic breathing to a constant state. With Mu Yue's guidance, he picked up wind breathing rapidly and soon began making striking progress. This is truly incredible, Minato said with a smile. You might leave a really deep mark on the history of ninjutsu with this new secret technique. To Minato, each breathing technique felt like a distinct school of power, the kind of thing a clan would hand down as a treasured secret. Mu Yue smiled inwardly, but couldn't help thinking of the strange things from his previous life. Gacha games that gender-swapped historical figures and even ships. The thought of becoming someone's collectible character in a future game made him a little uneasy. I don't think that's likely, Minato said, puzzled. He couldn't see why leaving a lasting legacy would be bad, as long as it didn't end the way Uchiha Madara had. Mu Yue didn't try to explain gacha games to Minato. Some things were just too anachronistic to justify in this world. He returned to teaching instead. Since he didn't need to train the regular members that afternoon, only the squad leaders and above in the evening, Mu Yue kept at it until dinner. After they ate, he went to the training squad and found Shisui still there. He called Shisui into the captain's office. Shisui, you don't need to attend tonight's darkness breathing class, Mu Yue told him. It would be a waste of your time. Shisui had been training in breathing techniques for years and had already mastered flame breathing. Learning darkness breathing, a derivative and less potent form of breathing technique, would be beneath him. But won't I look bad if I'm the only one absent? Shisui worried. He was conscious of appearances and didn't want to make Mu Yue look bad by standing out. I'll explain the situation. If anyone already meets the standard for darkness breathing, they don't have to come, Mu Yue replied. The evening classes were meant to quickly raise leaders' darkness breathing levels. If someone's already at the required level, there's no point in making them sit through it. He patted Shisui's head lightly. Don't overthink it. You're only adding pressure for yourself. Thank you, Teacher Mu Yue, Shisui said gratefully. Saving the time would let him read or work on other training. After leaving, Shisui paused only a moment before heading to the Uchiha residence, not to see Fugaku, but to visit Uchiha Itachi. He'd been busy with the training squad lately and had missed their regular meetups. Shisui had made it a personal goal to see Itachi at least once every 2 weeks to instill good habits through example. Big brother Shisui, Itachi greeted him warmly. Although Shisui had been absent for a while, the two had no formal schedule, so Itachi's pleasure at seeing him was genuine. I've been busy with work, Shisui said. I finally had free time today. What kind of work? It's classified. Then tell me a story. That shouldn't be classified, Itachi teased. Shisui smiled. Where did I leave off last time? You were talking about going on a bandit subjugation mal, Ishin. Meanwhile, far away in the land of water, the third Mizukage studied his latest intelligence on Konoha with a small, calculating smile. Kumogakure forces and Konoha troops were locked in a large battle in the land of hot water, and the Mizukage saw opportunity. So far, Kumogakure had burst through the land of fire's defenses and then clashed with Konoha's border forces, while Iwagakure had been inert and fruitless. Perhaps Yagura Karatachi should act now, the third Mizukage murmured, thoughtful. He had planned to watch a while longer, but the moment had come to seize the advantage. If Hidden Mist struck now, it might prompt Kumogakure to push harder or even draw in other major villages. The Mizukage considered the risks and rewards. The gamble felt worthwhile. Ships and long-distance naval campaigns made Hidden Mist less vulnerable to immediate reprisals from inland powers, and the potential gains from creating chaos on the continent outweighed the cost of some casualties. He put pen to paper and issued orders. In the land of waves, Yagura Karatachi read the sealed command with clenched hands and a flash of excitement in his eyes. The opportunity had come faster than he'd expected. He had planned on staying in the land of waves for months, but now he could act. Hayate Mugetsu, he thought, remembering the last Hidden Mist night raid. Back then, just as Hidden Mist forces seemed poised to win, Mu Yue had used a ninjutsu that turned night into day and suppressed water release, cutting down Hidden Mist's strongest fighters and snatching victory away. This time, Yagura had studied Hidden Mist's secret scrolls and found a way to summon rainy weather with chakra. If Mu Yue tried the same daylight technique again, Yagura could change the weather to overcast and rain, mitigating its effect. Gather the forces. Prepare to invade the land of fire, Yagura ordered his jonin. They acknowledged and went to work, readying their troops. Soon the ships bearing Hidden Mist ninja set sail. The people of the Land of Waves breathed easier. They had feared being pulled into another full-scale war. Last time, Yagura had landed in the southeast, a poor, lightly defended region. This time, he chose the northeastern coast. The choice was deliberate. A little further north of the landing point was the hot zone where Kumogakure and Konoha clashed. Konoha would have to rush troops to that front to prevent being flanked, and the Hidden Mist would avoid direct engagement with Konoha main forces. Instead, they planned guerrilla operations, slipping around to harass and exhaust Konoha, and ideally, invite other villages to join the chaos. Whether they fought Konoha alongside others or against additional foes, Hidden Mist stood to benefit. The muddier the continent's waters and the more chaotic the conflict, the more advantage for Yagura and his kind. 633. High-level personnel participate in the battle. Led by Yagura Karatachi, over 1,000 Hidden Mist shinobi descended and struck Konoha's border defenses in the northeastern Land of Fire. Because Kumogakure had launched a large offensive not long before, Konoha's attention was already fixed on the northeast, so the mist's arrival was noticed quickly. The hidden mist's fighting style was distinctive. You could recognize them even without seeing their forehead protectors or clothing. Hiruzen Sarutobi had been quietly proud in recent days. A second wood-release user had appeared in the village, Mu Yue, a brilliant young ninja who seemed a youthful echo of Hashirama Senju and who might revive the glory of the ninja god. Then, less than 2 weeks later, word came to the Hokage's office that the mist had invaded the Land of Fire. The Fire Daimyo, displeased at repeated breaches of the country's defenses, had written directly to Hiruzen Sarutobi, demanding that the intruders be driven out and the realm secured. The daimyo's letter left Hiruzen with no choice but to admit failure and promise swift action. Konoha served as the military arm of the Land of Fire. If the village failed to keep enemies from invading the country itself, it was a dereliction of duty. They all picked their timing so well, Hiruzen muttered, brows tightening. He had thought the Kumogakure threat in the northeast was dealt with and had planned to devote energy to investigating Danzo Shimura's death. Now, that plan had to be postponed. Protecting the homeland came first, and the Mist's incursion meant another of the 5 great shinobi villages was back on the battlefield. He stood in his office, listening to the quiet on the other side of the closed door. The news of Danzo's death still stung, and Hiruzen found the sorrow taking him in small moments. When he finished work and felt too tired to think, he would unconsciously expect Danzo's quiet presence at the office, only to remember the finality of his loss and be overwhelmed by melancholy. Notify the 2 advisors to come to the Hokage's office, Hiruzen ordered an Angbu guard. He had to avenge Danzo, but first he was the 3rd Hokage. The safety and interests of Konoha came above all. A knock sounded at the door. Enter. The 2 advisors stepped in. The Angbu closed the door behind them and took up his silent watch. The hidden mist has entered the war again, Hiruzen said without delay. They've landed ninja forces in the northeastern Land of Fire. How dare they? Haven't they been punished enough? Utatane Koharu said, her face hard. The daimyo demands we eliminate the invaders as quickly as possible, Hiruzen added. That needs special handling, Homura Mitokado said gravely. If the situation wasn't resolved, the daimyo could reduce the military funding Konoha received, something Hiruzen could not afford. To resolve the mist invasion promptly, a senior official should lead troops to the field to boost morale, Hiruzen said, looking at the 2 advisors. Minato Namikaze had been dispatched to the Land of Hot Water the day before. Because Kumogakure posed a more pressing threat, Hiruzen did not plan to recall Minato. Mu Yue would have been ideal, but he'd only recently developed wood release and still needed training. Hiruzen didn't want to send him into battle yet. That left few options. High-ranking officials like Homura and Koharu could lead, and their presence would have an effect. Utatane hesitated. She felt sending senior officials to the front was premature. Their other duties were important, but she also feared Hiruzen would think she'd grown too comfortable away from battle. Isn't Mu Yue still in Konoha? He's learned the Flying Thunder God technique and has other abilities stronger than Minato's. He did a lot to defeat the Mist last time. He should be able to handle this. Hiruzen shook his head. Mu Yue has developed wood release and needs time to train. What? He developed wood release. Wait, what did you say? Utatane blinked, disbelief plain on her face. She would have preferred D to have misheard. Mu Yue now has wood release? Homura echoed, every bit as shocked. The fact that someone had independently developed wood release was more astonishing to them than the Mist's invasion. You didn't mishear, Hiruzen replied calmly. I saw him use wood release myself 10 days ago. Konoha has a second wood release user. Utatane's voice betrayed her amazement. How is that possible? Is his mother a Senju? Hiruzen dismissed the idea. None of the first generation's descendants possessed wood release on their own. It isn't necessarily a matter of bloodline. Perhaps wood release can be independently developed only by a certain kind of genius. His ice release was his own development too, wasn't it? Homura said, thinking aloud. Maybe he really is a once-in-a-century talent. If that's the case, Mu Yue shouldn't go to the front right now, Hiruzen concluded. There was a short silence, then Homura spoke up. I'll go. He had thought it through. Mu Yue needed to train, Utatane did not want to go, and Hiruzen himself couldn't easily leave his duties. Homura, because of his rank and experience, was the logical choice. He was also still a formidable shinobi, even if his training time had decreased since taking office. Homura, be careful, Hiruzen said, nodding. And don't overexert yourself. You're not the Homura Mitokado who trained every day anymore, Utatane warned with a soft rebuke. I'll be careful. Wait for my good news, Homura replied with a small smile. After they discussed the deployment, Homura and Utatane left the office. Hiruzen sighed and leaned back in his chair. All he wanted now was to end the fighting quickly so he could return to avenging his old friend, and to wait until Mu Yue matured enough for him to consider passing on his post. South Border Forest. Mu Yue was guiding his disciples through training, juggling teaching times so he could manage both group practice and individual instruction. He'd staggered lessons so that his students' development didn't fall behind while he continued his own training and supervision. Teacher Mu Yue, has Shisui been busy lately? I hardly see him, Obito asked during a break. He joined the training squad, Mu Yue answered. What's the training squad? Is it for ninjutsu practice? Obito had never heard of it. You can think of the training squad like a specialized ambu, Mu Yue said. Not all classified information had to be hidden from pupils. Kakashi's eyes flicked up at the word anbu, a little surprised. Obito, always dramatic, visibly alarmed. Anbu, he exclaimed. I read a novel where the protagonist joins Anbu, carries out secret missions, uncovers high-level secrets, and then... So that's a novel, Kakashi cut in dryly. He knew little about Anbu, but for ordinary ninjas, it always sounded mysterious. Shisui joining Anbu was notable, but not automatically a herald of conspiracy. Before the conversation could continue, a series of loud roars shook the training field. Is Might Guy messing with new taijutsu again? Obito leaped to his feet and looked toward the sound. Might Guy stood nearby, hands forming an eagle claw stance as he struck the trees and the ground in a furious rhythm. Stacking 8 gates with rock breathing is brutal. His simple claw strikes have incredible power, Obito said, impressed. Since Might Guy's potential had burst on the Hidden Mist battlefield, he dominated the internal competitions among the disciples. Only after Kakashi learned lightning-breathing chakra mode did he have a chance to challenge Guy. Even then, Might Guy remained at the top for the most part. Might Guy, blind to the effect his training had on others, was simply thrilled with his progress. A name should match a taijutsu's presence, he mused aloud. This came to me this morning. I got the idea from Kurohane, so I'll call it Morning Eagle. The naming system he used was part technique, part showmanship. Sometimes he based names on a move's nature. Other times he tied them to the time they were born and a fierce beast. Noon Leopard. D. Morning Eagle. After afternoon training ended, Mu Yue and Yamato walked home together. I've handled things at the Ninja Academy for you. You can just go to class starting Monday, Mu Yue said. As the Academy's vice principal, Mu Yue could make those arrangements easily. School. Yamato's eyes widened. He had almost forgotten. Danzo had been his primary teacher, focusing on ninjutsu and the duty to protect Konoha, so Yamato's idea of academy life came mostly from Obito and the others' stories. Thank you, he said gratefully. It's a small matter. At your age, you should be at the academy, Mu Yue replied with a smile. After a light dinner, they chatted a while longer, then Mu Yue left. Watching him go, Yamato wondered what school life would be like. Obito had described it as strange, a place you wanted to go when you couldn't and didn't want to go when you had to. Might Guy had called it life-changing and had pushed hard to get in. Kakashi hadn't said much. Wood release, flying leaf quick blade. Yamato halted his musing and resumed training, pushing himself. He still had a long way to go. His seniors trained every day, and Yamato, one of the weaker ones now, couldn't afford to be lazy. Assemble the troops and move south. After clearing out the nearby Konoha ninja patrols, Yagura Karatachi began repositioning his force. Ever since they had entered the Land of Fire, the Hidden Mist contingent had not bothered to hide their movements. Yagura expected Konoha would quickly respond. Their position was adjacent to Konoha's forces, and a northward push could have put the Konoha units fighting Kumogakure in a pincer. Yagura would never allow such an obvious advantage to fall into Kumogakure's lap, but the mere possibility meant caution was warranted. he summoned his 2 vice commanders. Shingetsu, when you reach this point, take your troops and spread out to operate in that forest by the river mouth, Yagura said to Shingetsu Hozuki, pointing at the map. The goal was to harry and exhaust the Konoha forces, so Yagura split his army into 3 main teams. Each would further subdivide and wage guerrilla warfare, hide and seek with Konoha. Then he turned to the other vice commander. Kawasawa, you and your team will take this location. Shingetsu and Tosha Kawasawa both nodded. Without Haku holding us back this time, we can redeem ourselves, one of them said, and Yagura's lips curved. The last campaign had cost them dearly. 5 of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist had vanished for reasons that baffled him, and Haku had sacrificed himself, effectively taking 2 top fighters out of their roster. This time, with better planning, he meant to avoid such losses. When each detachment reached its assigned area, each split again. Yagura reorganized and personally led an elite squad to hunt down Konoha detachments. As he had predicted, Konoha responded. A 1,000-man force arrived in the northeastern land of fire. But something unexpected happened. Before he could spring his ambushes, Mist Ambu began to provide constant, precise intelligence on the Konoha units, tracking them as if cameras had been placed on every Konoha soldier. Yagura was surprised. They were deep in Konoha territory. How had the Hidden Mist secured such an intelligence edge? When had the Mist Ambu become so capable? If they already held the intelligence advantage, Yagura realized, guerrilla fragmentation might be unnecessary. They could use the information to strike Konoha directly. Still a cautious commander, he did not act on impulse. He contacted Hidden Mist High Command back in the Land of Water for instructions. The response was clear. Attack, seize the moment, and hit Konoha hard. With that order, Yagura redrew his plan around the new intelligence. He kept his own troops mobile and instructed the other 2 teams to leave behind a few operatives as decoys, then mass their forces to set an ambush in the areas surrounding his position. Yagura himself would make frequent, provocative movements to lure Konoha in. If he's so rampant in the Land of Fire, he must have something to rely on, Homura Mitokado thought when he learned what Yagura's force was doing. Rather than fly into a blind rage, he calmly considered countermeasures. He ordered his intelligence network to pin down Yagura's exact location and devised a plan to eliminate the Mist Commander first. If Yagura planned guerrilla warfare, Homura reasoned, removing the head would dissolve the threat. Homura divided his available troops into 2 large formations. He would lead one to encircle and annihilate the sector where Yagura operated, while the second team would move to cut off the area just beyond it. With ninja mobility, they could support each other if things went wrong, and the pincer would make Yagura's escape much harder. But Homura did not rush. The key to his plan was accuracy. If he struck at the wrong location, his forces would be chasing shadows. Only when his intel ninjas produced a reliable fix did Homura give the order to begin. He prioritized stability over speed. Watching Homura's movements on his own intelligence feed, Yagura felt a flicker of regret. Why hadn't Hayate Mugetsu or Orochimaru been the ones to arrive instead? If they had, he thought, it would truly be a chance to redeem himself. Monday. Yamato and Mu Yue walked to the Ninja Academy together for the new term. It was the first day of school, and even Hiruzen Sarutobi had taken time to attend the entrance ceremony and give a speech. Mu Yue handed Yamato a small gift box as they entered. "This is your entrance present," Mu Yue said with a gentle smile. "It's a kunai I forged myself. Open it and see if you like it." "You didn't have to," Yamato protested, touched. Even a store-bought kunai would have meant a lot coming from Mu Yue. A personally forged one felt like something he couldn't repay. A system notification popped into Mu Yue's view. You gifted your disciple a personally forged kunai. Due to your disciple's immense gratitude, a great critical hit was rewarded, granting ninjutsu, transcription seal, mastery level. Mu Yue nodded at the reward. Transcription seal was a useful ninjutsu. He wondered if the Sharingan he had obtained through transformation could employ it. If so, it might prove decisive in a pinch. They took their seats among the crowd. Hiruzen's speech about the Will of Fire stirred enthusiasm in the new students, making them feel like Konoha's future pillars. After the applause, the ceremony host invited Mu Yue to speak. When Mu Yue stepped up, the auditorium erupted. Among the faculty and students, he had become a minor legend. Teachers gossiped about the time he'd substituted for classes, shared dinners, and otherwise left a strong impression. Mu Yue delivered his prepared remarks smoothly, and when he finished, another round of thunderous applause followed. Yamato watched the reaction and thought, half amused, that Mu Yue seemed more popular than the Hokage himself. The ceremony over, Yamato found his assigned class, Class 1, Grade 1, and sat in the front row, nearest the door. The room filled, the bell rang, and the chuunin-level teacher entered. "Now we'll do self-introductions," he said. "Just your name and your dream. Any volunteers to go first?" Silence. No one stepped forward. "I am Yamato," Yamato stood. "My dream is to become a ninja like the first Hokage, someone who can protect everything I care about." Polite applause followed. The teacher praised the idealism. The younger students looked to Yamato with wide eyes, some admiring, others skeptical. One by one, the other children introduced themselves. One wanted to be Hokage, another a teacher like Mu Yue, a third wanted to prove herself as a Hyuga heir. The introductions wrapped up and formal lessons began. "In this class, we'll cover one of the most important things for a ninja, chakra," the teacher began. Yamato, who had been taught much of the basics already, first by Danzo Shimura and then by Mu Yue, quickly tuned out. 10 minutes later, he was thinking about dinner. The teacher's explanations were elementary, like asking a student who knew calculus to do basic addition. A girl with pale eyes behind him whispered a remonstrance. "Yamato, aren't you supposed to become a ninja like the first Hokage? Pay attention." "I already know this," Yamato whispered back. He didn't want to be a poor example. He was Mu Yue's disciple and couldn't tarnish that reputation. "Yamato, stand and tell us what I just taught," the teacher called, annoyed by the whispering. Yamato stood and rattled off the chakra fundamentals with far more depth than the lesson demanded. The 7 chakra natures: fire, wind, water, earth, lightning, yin, and yang. The typical counters and correspondences, how combinations could give rise to Kekkei Genkai in unique chakra forms. The teacher, overwhelmed, stopped him midstream. "That's enough," the teacher said, but then, grudgingly amused, added, "Yamato is very diligent. If anyone has questions, ask him." Word of Yamato's unexpected breadth of knowledge spread quickly. A cluster of students soon surrounded him after class. "How do you know so much?" "You were the first to introduce yourself. So brave," Yamato answered earnestly, crediting his teacher. Laughter and teasing followed, but it felt friendly, not mocking. By morning's end, he had made 8 classmates who wanted to talk to him. In the afternoon, the physical education lesson focused on kunai throwing. Yamato hit the bullseye repeatedly, drawing fresh exclamations from his classmates. During free time, those same classmates peppered him with questions, which he answered seriously. By day's end, though he had learned little new, Yamato felt unexpectedly content. He had never before experienced having peers like this. When he had been en route, he had been isolated. Even after Mu Yue took him on, his world had been largely just his teacher and other disciples. "That's why I had to stay for at least a year," Yamato realized. Mu Yue hadn't sent him to the academy to learn textbook lessons. He sent him to grow, to be with others, to play. A notification appeared on Mu Yue's panel. Disciple Yamato's trust level has increased. Current trust level, 4. Yamato's trust level is maxed out. The notification blinked, and Mu Yue nodded slightly. Trust levels mattered. Higher trust not only returned more chakra to the teacher, it also made higher-tier skill rewards available. "I wonder which perfect grade reward will come this time," he murmured, a little excited. Every disciple who reached trust level 4 was guaranteed 1 perfect grade reward. Perfect grade skills were precious. Mu Yue himself didn't have many, and each one was a vital part of his strength. Ideally, Mu Yue wanted a perfect grade chakra nature transformation, preferably one he hadn't yet mastered. A ninja's power hinges on chakra, even Taijutsu consumes it, and a strong nature transformation can boost multiple abilities. If his lightning release reached perfect grade, for example, the thoughtless blade would become far deadlier, his lightning-breathing chakra mode would be more potent, and all his lightning techniques would gain from a superior nature transformation. He pushed that thought aside and returned his attention to the wood release scroll left by Senju Hashirama. He wasn't keeping it for show. He had been learning wood release. Put Hashirama's aura aside, wood release itself was an excellent blend of offense and defense, and it was especially effective against tailed beasts. Around 7 that evening, as Mu Yue prepared to teach the Ambu squad leaders and team leaders, his shadow clone's memories flowed back into him. Yamato's new training plan? Good, I'll do this when I get back. I can also trigger the skill reward then. He moved without wasting time toward the training team's ground. After class the next day, Mu Yue went straight to Yamato's house. He arrived a few minutes early and waited. When Yamato came out and saw him, the boy was surprised and then touched when he noticed what Mu Yue held. Mu Yue had already prepared the training plan Yamato had asked for. Teacher Mu Yue. Yamato welcomed him and ushered him inside. Please wait a moment, I'll get you some water. He had meant to offer tea, but then remembered there was none. Yamato didn't drink it anyway, and there was no reason to fuss over hospitality. Mu Yue set the secret cultivation medicine and the training plan on the table, and, rather than immediately talking about training, asked about Yamato's experience at school. How have the last 2 days been? Getting used to it? Everything's fine, except the ninjutsu theory classes. They're pretty boring, Yamato admitted. Most students liked the ninja-related lessons and loathed the academic ones, history, literature, but Yamato was different. He enjoyed culture and history more than many of his peers. So you don't dislike school, Mu Yue said with a smile. Yamato nodded. In fact, he rather liked being there. If school didn't slow his training, he might have stayed longer. Enjoy it while you can, Mu Yue reminded him. Once you graduate, you won't be a student again. He pushed the items closer to Yamato. This is the new training plan I made for you, and here's a semester's worth of cultivation medicine. Thank you, Yamato said earnestly. He felt lucky to have met Mu Yue. Had he remained en route, someone would have taught him how to survive, but his life would have been far harsher. He might never have attended ninja school, never met seniors like Kakashi, and certainly wouldn't have found such a meticulous teacher. A system notification popped up in Mu Yue's mind. You gifted the disciple cultivation secret medicine, and the disciple was extremely grateful, rewarding a supercritical strike. Obtained reward, wood release, perfect grade. A flood of wood release cultivation memories poured into Mu Yue. Techniques he had been struggling with clicked instantly. The ones he already knew deepened. Even though it wasn't the standard chakra nature transformation he'd hoped for, in some ways this was better. Bloodline limits are harder to raise in proficiency than regular nature transformations. Getting deep proficiency feedback through a student who actually learns the bloodly, art was rarer and more valuable. Train well, Mu Yue said, smiling as he patted Yamato's head. That's the best return I could ask for. He stayed for dinner with Yamato before returning to the training team to prepare for the evening classes. Later, after work, he used Flying Thunder God to teleport out of Konoha, then used lightning breathing to travel to a remote, underdeveloped corner in the southwest of the Land of Fire. It was far from any battlefield, a perfect place to experiment with ninjutsu. Mu Yue walked to a large, uninhabited mountain and activated Byakugan, Transparent World, Kenbun Haki, and other senses to sweep the area. Satisfied there was no one around, he began his practice. Wood release, tree world advent. He formed the seals, and a vast amount of chakra flowed into wood release. Trees erupted from the ground and grew at an alarming rate. The mountain's forest thickened until it felt eerie, roots, trunks, and branches filling the slope like a living barrier. Mu Yue nodded. He hadn't seen Senju Hashirama's Tree World Advent in person, but he'd studied recordings and Danzo's performances. What he produced casually surpassed Danzo's in both range and trunk density, though he still didn't consider it Hashirama level. Art, Advent of a World of Flowering Trees. Vines as thick as trunks surged up, quickly unfurling and blossoming with buds. This enhanced version of Tree World Advent produced vines longer and tougher than regular trees, and, if released, could emit pollen that induced unconsciousness. Mu Yue had once prepared antidotes and breathing masks to prevent Danzo from mastering that effect. Danzo never learned it, though, so the preparations had gone unused. There were no enemies around, so Mu Yue canceled the jutsu before any pollen could spread. Wood release, wood human technique. He poured in massive chakra. The trees at his feet wove together, merged, and rose into a 40-meter-tall wood human. Standing on its shoulder, Mu Yue felt an exhilarating rush. Even if it was just spectacle, operating such a construct felt undeniably cool. He had the giant swing its fist at a nearby peak. When it struck, stone and earth exploded outward. The wood release can have varying hardness depending on chakra quality. He canceled the wood human and cleaned up the traces. I'm still missing Sage Mode, Mu Yue thought as he refined his chakra on the spot. Hashirama's most impressive techniques required Sage Mode. True several thousand hands was only usable by a senjutsu master with humongous reserves. Even Hashirama found it taxing. Mu Yue couldn't afford that kind of expenditure right now. He considered approaching Jiraiya or Tsunade. The three great holy lands each possessed their own senjutsu. Mu Yue had good relationships with both Tsunade and Jiraiya and could train at Mount Myoboku or the Shikotsu forest. But he had reservations. The Holy Land ancestors were mysterious, and Mu Yue wasn't eager to expose himself to beings that might see his future and act on their disapproval. The Great Toad Sage, for example, possessed foresight stretching back to the Sage of Six Paths era. A long-lived, powerful seer could be dangerous if it judged his future unfavorably. Katsuyu and the other ancestors were equally unknowns. Between that uncertainty and the fact Mu Yue's growth was exploding in other directions already, he decided Sage Mode could wait. Back in Konoha, Mu Yue placed the Pokemon egg beside him and returned to breathing technique research. He always carried the egg and stowed it in system space when he left home. He cleared his thoughts and entered a focused state. Even if he wanted Sage Mode, he couldn't use true several thousand hands yet. The chakra cost would be insane. About an hour later, Mu Yue finished and prepared for sleep. Just as he turned out the lights, the Pokemon egg emitted a faint green glow and then dimmed. Mu Yue felt a slight lightness in his body. Curious, he activated Byakugan to peer into the egg, but the glow resisted penetration. It should be close to hatching, he thought. If it turned out to be a legendary Pokemon, and he trained it for a while, combined with his own strength, maybe visiting the Holy Lands wouldn't be such a risk. According to the system's localized data, legendary Pokemon would be formidable. With one as a 9-beast alongside his own power, Mu Yue would have a solid contingency. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Homura Mitokado briefed his forces. Jonin Chen, if you encounter anything unusual, fire a signal flare immediately. I'll dispatch reinforcements, he said. Teacher Chen was experienced and strong. Mitokado assigned him to lead one of the teams against the hidden mist. I understand, Advisor Yan. Same for your side, Teacher Chen replied. They split their troops and set off in different directions. Knowing the hidden mist's reputation for assassination and fog-based tactics, Mitokado had 2 Hyuga Jonin travel with his force, alternating use of the Byakugan to scout. As they approached, a Hyuga Jonin reported, Lord Yan, there's a dense area of mist ahead produced by hidden mist ninjutsu. We can't determine the enemy's numbers. Byakugan could see chakra through normal smoke, but the hidden mist technique was itself formed of chakra. To the Byakugan, it was just more chakra. Mitokado didn't want to be stalled by a patch of fog. Wind Release Ninja. Step forward. Use Wind Release to disperse the mist. Slow your pace and continue advancing, he ordered. He had prepared for this. Retreat wasn't an option. Suddenly, a giant water dragon shot out from the mist. Water Release. Water Dragon Bullet Technique, one of the hidden mist's attackers shouted. Earth Release. Earth Flow Wall. Mitokado responded in an instant, forming the seals to raise a massive earth wall which intercepted the dragon. A short figure emerged from the thinning mist. I can't believe you still dared to attack proactively, Mitokado said, eyes fixed on him. Heh, why wouldn't I? Yagura Karatachi answered with a sneer. The Byakugan users counted roughly 500 enemies as the mist thinned. That number matched Mitokado's expectations. He had brought 800 ninja. The fight should have been manageable. Then another Hyuga reported urgently. No, large numbers of hidden mist ninja are approaching from afar. Mitokado's expression changed dramatically. It's a trap. Fire the signal flare. Homura Mitokado barked. He had fallen into an ambush, but he didn't panic. Panic solved nothing. A true shinobi kept his head and found a way out. Whoosh! Bang! The Konoha ninjas responded instantly, launching the highest grade signal flare. Fall back and regroup to the north, Homura ordered. Teacher Chen's squad wasn't far. If they could link up, they might not only escape, but turn the tables. This isn't a place you can come and go as you please. Yagura Karatachi, iron rod in hand, hurtled toward Homura. Hidden Mist elites followed, clearing a path for their leader. "Let's see if you can stop me," Homura said, unfurling the large summoning scroll at his chest. He formed seals and gathered chakra. Ninja tool, blasting bullet. Dozens of kunai screamed through the air toward Yagura. He didn't block with brute force. He gathered chakra and extended a palm. Water release, mirror technique. A vast sheet of water rose and solidified into a huge circular mirror. The explosive tagged kunai struck the water and detonated. The blasts rocked the mirror, sending ripples across its surface, but Yagura had expected them. The moment the explosions were contained, he dispelled the water mirror, swung his rod, and charged. Homura summoned an iron staff and met him. Clang! The two metallic weapons crashed together in a shower of sparks. Yagura's rod had a hooked tip. Under his tremendous strength, it slid toward Homura's head. Homura exploded chakra, twisted his staff, and deflected the hook. His staff technique, learned from Hiruzen Sarutobi years ago, was his most practiced weapon. They fought with steady, powerful steps, each stroke tracing silver arcs through the air. Their speed and strength were nearly identical, and for a long moment no one could claim the advantage. Realizing that close quarters wouldn't break the deadlock, Homura sprang back, creating distance. He hurled his staff like a spear and summoned another scroll. A large bow and arrows materialized. He notched and loosed 2 arrows laced with wind-style chakra. Yagura raised another water mirror to defend. The first arrow struck the water and only caused ripples. The second fragmented the shifting surface and punched through. Water exploded outward. The spray splashed Yagura in the face and stung his cheek. He turned sharply. Blood appeared on his skin. "I underestimated him. Those were fast and accurate arrows," Yagura murmured. The sting snapped the complacency from his mind. Homura's reputation was deserved. His presence at the top of Konoha's command was no accident. Homura let out a small breath and drew the bow back into the scroll. That trick was meant to ambush. If it didn't work, its usefulness was limited. He reached for another technique, Shuriken Shadow Clone technique. From the scroll, Homura produced a giant shuriken and threw it. Chakra split it into 2, then 4. Yagura responded with another water mirror, but this time it was pressed into a fence. From within the mirror, a perfect copy of Homura burst forth and used the Shuriken Shadow Clone technique. The 4 colossal shurikens slammed into one another and canceled out. The clone surged forward at the real Homura and vanished after a single collision. Seizing the opening, Shingetsu Hozuki freed his hands and formed them into a pistol shape. Water release, water gun. Liquid bullets shot toward Homura. Nearby, Tosha Kawasawa formed seals and sent a storm of water bullets at him. Yagura poured massive chakra into a thick water dragon and unleashed it. Suddenly beset by 3 strong attackers, Homura, though supported by other Konoha forces, began to take wounds. He retreated repeatedly, using the dragon's impact to buy time and scanning the battlefield with anxious eyes. "This isn't good," he muttered. Most of the hidden mist attackers seemed concentrated here. Homura's unit could match Yagura in a one-on-one, but not when the field overall tilted so heavily against Konoha. Fighting while retreating would only delay the inevitable. "Do we have to break through by sacrificing most of our men?" he wondered. He knew that if he gave the order to push through by sheer force, a portion of the elite might escape, but the cost could be 600 to 700 ninja. That would be a mission failure of the worst kind. "No, we have to hold on." Homura formed seals and hurled a rain of kunai at the surrounding mist troops. He refused to abandon so many comrades. Most of those 700 were chuunin. Even if they'd been mere jinin, training them back up would be expensive. Konoha was stretched thin on multiple fronts and couldn't afford to cede so many lives. Still, his determination did not change the situation. Homura and Yagura were roughly matched, but Homura was wounded and outnumbered. The ranks of Konoha's fighters were thinning, and a grim doubt crept into his resolve. Not fear of dying, but fear that a different choice might crush everyone. "Leaf Dragon God!" someone shouted. A green dragon tore through Yagura's encirclement, and a gale scattered the hidden mist attackers. Riding that wind came a wave of Konoha ninjas, Teacher Chen's team at last. Homura's face brightened. Jonin Chen, break through with us. Don't get drawn into a prolonged fight. Yagura watched the newly arrived force with regret. If the Konoha reinforcements had been a third smaller, he might have wiped out Chen's team as well. Pursue! Kill as many Konoha as you can, he ordered. They chased until the Konoha force reached the north-central region. Then Yagura stopped the pursuit. Pushing farther into the land of fire risks a trap. This was Konoha's home ground. Eager to report victory, Yagura sent news back to the Hidden Mist. The third Mizukage, elated at the result, convened a celebratory meeting and then dispatched 600 more Hidden Mist shinobi to the Land of Waves. The opportunity seemed too good to ignore. If the advantage could be sustained, a decisive blow might be possible. Hidden Mist rejoiced. Konoha, reeling from heavy losses elsewhere, was grim. Konoha Hospital. In an upper ward, Homura lay on a bed, his face worn with the weight of apology. Utatane Koharu sat beside him, hesitant. Hiruzen Sarutobi stood at the window, smoking slowly. A heavy silence filled the room. Homura actually lost, nearly 300 dead and over 500 wounded, Hiruzen said, voice tight as he recited the casualty report. His brows were deeply furrowed. He had expected Homura, of all people, to hold the line or at least force a steady advantage. That such a defeat would strike on Konoha soil was worse than he had feared. Has he been away from the battlefield too long? Hiruzen wondered aloud, looking at Homura. Losses on that scale used to mean something different. 300 dead used to be acceptable if the battle gained strategic ground. But Konoha was already strained, fighting against Kumo and with Iwa lying in wait. A shock like this could trigger a domino effect. Homura broke the silence. I apologize. I disappointed the village. He did not offer excuses. He admitted his failure plainly. Was there some hidden powerhouse among the Hidden Mist force this time? Koharu asked cautiously. No, Homura replied. It was my mistake in judgment. In overall strength, we should have been superior. Koharu fell silent. There was no reason to defend him when he had confessed fault himself. Let Mu Yue go, Homura said, turning his gaze to Hiruzen. Konoha had Tsunade, but her battlefield killing efficiency was not comparable to Mu Yue's. Moreover, Tsunade was reluctant to head into battle now. Hiruzen pondered the suggestion. I was thinking the same, Hiruzen admitted. He had hoped to give Mu Yue more time to train, but circumstances had changed. If Mu Yue did not go, they might have to recall Jiraiya or Hiruzen would have to leave the village himself, both unpalatable options. Facing the current opponents didn't seem to demand the Hokage's personal involvement, nor did it justify risking Mu Yue against potentially catastrophic foes like the third Tsuchikage or third Raikage. For now, Mu Yue was the right choice. Land of Earth, Iwagakure. Onoki frowned as he read the intelligence Kitsuchi's Ambu had brought. Rejected again. This looks like a fundamental problem, he muttered. Forming a joint force with the Shinobi sect to pressure Konoha in the Land of Rain was impossible unless Iwa first crushed the Rain's own forces, a pointless and self-defeating step. An urgent knock sounded on his door. Enter. An Iwagakure Ambu stepped in and handed over fresh reports. Lord Third Tsuchikage, we have important war intelligence about Konoha. Onoki's attention sharpened. He skimmed the dispatch. The Hidden Mist defeated the Konoha force led by Homura Mitokado in the Land of Fire. His brow rose. Knocking Konoha back within their own territory, defeating an elite force led by a Konoha elder, was more significant than any raid in foreign lands. It suggested Konoha might not be as invincible as he thought. Inform the elders, convene the council, Onoki ordered. He had been considering troop deployments, but such a decision required consensus. When the new intelligence was presented to Iwagakure's elder council, their reactions mirrored Onoki's. We've already taken heavy losses to Konoha since the war began. We shouldn't let this pass, Choki argued. We can seize this opportunity to send forces. Onoki agreed aloud. The Jonin captain also voiced support. The elders voted unanimously to dispatch a force to Konoha. For commander, they chose Reshi, captain of the Rock Ninja Blast Squad. The blame for the previous defeat had fallen on the dead Iwakura and the absent Roshi. Reshi, who had returned early from recuperation and remained fit, was unscathed by those losses and available. Other candidates either lacked the necessary qualifications or the strength for the role. With the decision made, Iwagakure prepared to move. Chapter 637, Necklace Worth 3 Mines. The situation is very unfavorable for us right now. We must deal with the hidden mist forces as quickly as possible. In the Hokage's office, Hiruzen Sarutobi discussed the war with Lord Mu Yue. Understood. I'll defeat the hidden mist as soon as conditions allow, Mu Yue replied. If you do, I'll hear good news soon, Hiruzen said with a dry chuckle. He would have preferred Mu Yue not go to the front lines if he'd had a better alternative. Mu Yue was a dangerous combination, a super genius who wielded wood release. About the personnel for the troops, Lord Mu Yue, any requests? Hiruzen could provide anyone Mu Yue asked for, unless they were already on secret missions. Kakashi and the others, perhaps. It's been a while since they had a real mission, Mu Yue said. Though this operation sounded like a routine counterattack, he suspected Uchiha Madara's hand somewhere. Konoha's current troubles had been stoked by Madara and Black Zetsu anyway. Mu Yue could see Madara's aim, fan disorder to create opportunities. He also knew Madara was searching for a successor. He wouldn't give him the chance. No matter how chaotic things got, bringing his disciples along would make Madara's plan harder to pull off. All right, Hiruzen said. They're your students, Lord Mu Yue. You can notify them yourself. The forces are already gathering. Because of Mu Yue, Hiruzen rarely assigned Kakashi and the others directly. They usually acted on their own wishes. After exchanging farewells, Mu Yue sent a shadow clone to the training team to notify Shisui and then headed to the south border forest himself. In the original timeline, Madara had targeted Obito, but Mu Yue wouldn't rule out Shisui being a backup. He wanted to take both along to prevent any surprises. When Mu Yue reached the south border forest, his students were still training. Everyone, if you need to, go home and pack. We're going on a mission, he called, stopping them. Obito's interest was piqued, but Mu Yue continued before he could ask. This mission will keep us inside the land of fire, but it will be a battlefield. We will be fighting Hidden Mist Village Shinobi. It's a large-scale war mission, Obito said, his face turning serious. He wasn't inexperienced, he understood the dangers of war. It's inside the country, and it's hidden mist, Kakashi added, looking thoughtful. He had been deep in training and hadn't followed recent Ninja World affairs closely, but he could still feel Konoha's tense atmosphere. Lord Mu Yue, will Shisui be on this mission? Kakashi asked after a moment. Given Konoha's problems, the chance of things going wrong was higher. They weren't at Lord Mu Yue's level yet. They weren't on par with a typical jonin in experience. Kakashi wanted Shisui along. Every extra strong hand helped. They had promised to change the future together. Yes, I already sent him a shadow clone, Mu Yue replied. Where should we gather after we prepare? Rin Nohara asked. Training Ground 11. The forces will assemble there. Everyone, I'm going back to get some things. Rin waved and left first, smiling. Kakashi and Obito said goodbye too. They needed to restock tools. Might Guy didn't need to replenish tools, but going to a battlefield wasn't trivial. He had to inform his family, so he went home. Yamato was in class, so Mu Yue didn't disturb him. He had someone notify him instead. Next, Mu Yue visited Tsunade's home. She had expected to score another meal, but when she learned he was heading into battle, her expression dropped. Why does this world have so many scoundrels? Can't it be peaceful for a few more years? She sighed. Missing a meal was the least of it. Tsunade worried she might not get any more. Did you come here just to say that, or do you want me to go with you? She asked. No, I have to command the troops. Even if you came with me, I couldn't make you 3 meals a day, Mu Yue said tactfully. Tsunade's strength and medical skill were top-notch, but she had her own unresolved issues, and stay wouldn't be relied on fully in the field. It was safer for her to stay in Konoha. 3 meals a day? My appearance fee should be at least 4 meals a day, she protested, crossing her arms indignantly. You are the strongest medical ninja in the world, Mu Yue said flatly. That's common knowledge, Tsunade agreed, then hesitated. She took off the necklace that hung around her neck and held it out. Are you still learning wood release? If so, you can borrow this necklace for a while. It was left by my grandfather and contains his chakra. This is a loan, not a gift, she added. This necklace is very valuable. If I sold it, it could buy 3 mines. You must return it after you've developed wood release. Mu Yue looked at the necklace in her hand. The death necklace. It was famous. In the original timeline, Tsunade had given it to Nawaki, Kato-dan, and Naruto. Only Naruto survived, and the necklace had broken. It sounded cursed, but it wasn't a lie. It was a powerful, valuable tool, capable of suppressing tailed beast chakra. "I've actually already mastered wood release," Mu Yue said with a faint smile. He formed a hand sign, condensed wood release chakra, and a large tree sprang up in Tsunade's small courtyard. Tsunade's eyes widened in disbelief. Someone else could develop wood release? Wasn't that her grandfather's bloodline limit? For a fleeting moment, she suspected she was under a genjutsu, but when she tested her chakra, it was steady and normal. "How did you do that?" she asked. "By reading the documents," Mu Yue replied as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Tsunade had read those documents too. Why hadn't she learned wood release? A strong sense of defeat pricked her, but she masked it with irritation. "You're troublesome. You've just developed wood release, and you still have much to learn. Just tell me whether you'll take it or not." She pushed the necklace toward Mu Yue, flustered. He didn't press the subject further. He took it and thanked her sincerely. He didn't need the necklace to study wood release, but analyzing it could be useful. If he could recreate similar techniques, he might be able to make an accessory for Kushina. "It's a loan, but with interest," Tsunade continued. "Every day you borrow it, you owe me 1 meal. 2 days, 2 meals, and so on until you return it. I hate unpaid debts most of all. If you don't return it, watch me beat your disciples half to death, especially that impolite goggle kid." She raised a fair fist threateningly. "I'll try to return to Konoha and pay it back as soon as possible," Mu Yue promised and left. Tsunade wasn't straightforward. Despite her threats, Mu Yue could feel her concern. "You'd better," she replied, waving casually. "Lord Mu Yue, please complete the mission safely," Shizune said beside them, offering a quiet farewell. Mu Yue smiled at her and headed for the training ground. As they walked back in, Shizune muttered, "Tsunade's so indirect. She's clearly worried and didn't say a single kind word." "Of course I'm worried. If he doesn't come back, my necklace worth 3 mines will be gone." Tsunade pinched Shizune's fair cheek. "That's not," Shizune sputtered, but Tsunade yanked at her and gave her a medical case that couldn't be solved in a day. By the time Mu Yue arrived at Training Ground 11, the forces were almost fully assembled. "Commander Mu Yue, Lord Mu Yue," ran the greetings. There were too many to reply to individually, so Mu Yue acknowledged groups with a nod. He stopped to speak with the jonin holding important posts. Senior Chen, Jonin Mimurabe. When he approached them, Mimurabe Ketsu reported the unit status. Mimurabe and Teacher Chen would serve as deputy commanders this time. "There are many more people than last time," Obito observed as he walked in. Mu Yue's force had been about 500 before. This looked like over 1,000 now. "Last time we were supporting the Toad Sage. This is different." Kakashi glanced sideways, about to explain. Obito noticed the look and bristled. "Hey, Kakashi, what's that look? I'm not just someone who only cares about fighting and nothing else." "Oh, then you're really amazing, Obito," Kakashi replied in his flat, deadpan way. "You give praise in the most annoying manner," Obito grumbled, cursing his bad timing for bumping into Kakashi on the way. "You two get along so well. Did you plan to come together?" Rin asked, smiling at the familiar bickering as she arrived. "No," Kakashi and Obito answered at once. "We just happened to meet," Obito added quickly. He hadn't arranged to come with Kakashi. "I meant to be on time." "Waiting for Obito is troublesome," Kakashi said coolly. Obito shot him a glare. He hadn't been late recently. He'd been using shadow clones to help elderly neighbors. "Shisui, how's work?" Obito asked, spotting him. Compared to quibbling with Kakashi, Obito preferred talking to his friend. Shisui had been busy lately, so they hadn't had much chance to chat. "It's going well," Shisui replied, and greeted the others. The group moved closer to Mu Yue and listened as he discussed troop deployment with the jonin. They stood nearby, not interrupting. When all the forces were present, Mu Yue cleared his throat and spoke. "Our opponent is the hidden mist forces roaming the east coast." He didn't mince words. After a brief explanation of the mission, he led the troops east. "The hidden mist has again dispersed its units. We're seeing signs of active squads from the northeast down to the southeast." During a break, the high-ranking nin gathered for a strategy meeting. "Divide into teams and sweep separately. a Konoha Jonin suggested. Not stable. Elder Mitokado fell into a hidden mist trap doing exactly that, Mimurabe Ketsu replied. They couldn't make the same mistake twice. But concentrating to clear one area would be inefficient, the first Jonin countered. With ninja mobility, a large concentrated force might still fail to clear half the territory before other squads scattered. For a while, the Jonin couldn't reach a consensus. Kakashi and his small group sat together, discussing quietly. They were capable, but lacked battlefield experience. Even Kakashi, the most experienced among them, hadn't been given a major role. Be careful against the enemy. I heard Konoha recently suffered a defeat, and it was this hidden mist force that did it, Obito said, passing along what he'd learned from other shinobi. On the battlefield, shinobi from any village must be cautious, Kakashi said softly. Konoha's situation is not optimistic lately. Lord Mu Yue may be in a life-or-death crisis. The idea of Mu Yue's death was a frightening possibility. Kakashi had analyzed it in private many times, wondering about timing and reason, thinking it must tie back to the coming Great War. None of the disciples had an easy expression. I think we should split our forces, Mu Yue said while the Jonin were still arguing. To him, the problem wasn't whether they could beat Yagura Karatachi and the Hidden Mist. He was convinced they could. But how to draw Yagura into a direct fight? From the intelligence they had, Hidden Mist's current plan was to wear Konoha down. Only when they were confident would they commit to a full-scale engagement. If Konoha brought all its strength at once, Yagura would simply avoid battle. Mu Yue's words changed the tone of the meeting. As commander of the operation, his authority carried weight. A few Jonin who had opposed dispersing the troops fell silent. Mimurabe Ketsu still frowned. Splitting our forces is too risky, he protested. One of the Jonin who supported Mu Yue seized the moment. Our last failure was mainly due to poor intelligence, right? This time, the village sent more manpower. Those mistakes shouldn't happen again. Mimurabe Ketsu, the deputy commander, had no good answer. To doubt Konoha's intelligence here would be to deny their own side's capabilities. If they truly were blind to Hidden Mist's moves in their own territory, dividing the force wouldn't matter. They'd be doomed either way. In the end, he fell silent, and the plan to split up was approved. Mu Yue proposed almost the same dispersal Homura Mitokado had used. Send Teacher Chen, who was stronger and more senior, with half the troops to clear out a separate Hidden Mist contingent, while Mu Yue led the other half. His reasoning was straightforward. If Yagura had dared attack Homura Mitokado before, he would be tempted to attack a similar maneuver. Mu Yue was one of Konoha's most prominent young ninja. If he could draw Yagura's attention the same way, the Hidden Mist would be forced to respond. He didn't rush the maneuver. Instead, he sent out small units to scout and clear out nearer Hidden Mist teams while waiting on the intelligence squad. Mu Yue knew that with Uchiha Madara or White Zetsu's help, Hidden Mist's intelligence could be formidable. He needed solid information before committing to an approach that some of the other Jonin considered suicidal. Even so, once the intelligence team reported Yagura Karatachi's position, Mu Yue moved. During the march, Mimurabe Ketsu couldn't hide his unease. Commander Mu Yue, forgive me, but I have a bad feeling. Maybe we've underestimated Hidden Mist's intelligence. Mimurabe Ketsu kept getting the same nagging memory. Hadn't this been the same script as Homura Mitokado's, just with different actors? Mu Yue smiled. Trust our comrades, he said. He hadn't overestimated Hidden Mist's reconnaissance. He simply believed his own plan would work. Hidden Mist still needed manpower to set up the illusionary formations, so not every Hidden Mist soldier would be free to fight, perhaps 90% at most of their normal strength. Mu Yue was confident he could neutralize 70 to 80% of that with his own abilities, and he believed the remaining 800 Konoha shinobi could handle the rest. Mimurabe Ketsu only sighed and kept quiet. Mu Yue had made his decision. Who was he to argue further? The intelligence team found Yagura's hiding place, and it wasn't a small patrol. Hidden Mist had deployed a force large enough to encircle them. Yagura laughed. Hayate Mugetsu, it seems I overestimated you. Do you never learn from the past? Yagura treated Mu Yue's approach as a real threat and prepared several countermeasures. At first he suspected a trap. After all, even if Mu Yue was young, There would be experienced tacticians among his forces, but the intelligence team's recent streak of accuracy convinced him to trust their reports. That trust would soon be tested. "Trap! Fire the signal flare!" Mimurabe Ketsu shouted, eyes widening at the hidden mist troops closing in. A flare shot skyward, blooming into a bright beacon. Kakashi drew his white-fanged short sword and went grave. They had defeated larger forces before through tactics, but this was the first time the Konoha unit had been surrounded and baited to an ambush. "Stay close in the fight," Kakashi ordered. "Cover each other, and keep an eye on Mu Yue-sensei." Obito, Shisui, and the others nodded. The danger was real. Neither Yagura's taunts nor the threatening hidden mist force made any difference in Mu Yue's expression. "Have you heard the saying, an excellent hunter often plays the prey?" Mu Yue said, looking calmly over the enemy lines. He activated his appraisal technique. Its information spread through his senses like a clear, clinical light. He saw names, chakra reserves, mastery levels. The appraisal read, Yagura Karatachi, chakra, 160,800. Skills, water release, chakra nature transformation, mastery, 150,000, yin release, 3,000, wind release chakra nature transformation, 2,800, water mirror technique. Shingetsu Hozuki, chakra 62,000. Skills, water release chakra nature transformation, 3D 715,000. Wind release chakra nature transformation, 2,600. Hydrification technique, water gun technique. Tosha Kawasawa, chakra 56,000. Skills, water release chakra nature transformation, 3,305,000. Wind release chakra nature transformation, 2,600. Hydrification technique, water gun technique. Appraisal gave far more detail than ordinary sensing. Mu Yue's eyes were untroubled. Yagura tightened his grip on his iron staff and fired chakra at Mu Yue. "I hope your strength matches your words," he shouted and charged. To ordinary observers, Yagura's speed looked almost imperceptible, but Mu Yue had activated his Byakugan and slipped into the transparent world. He saw Yagura's approach and had already anticipated the move before the first step was taken. Calmly, Mu Yue formed the snake hand seal, fingers interlaced, thumbs overlapping, and let a massive surge of wood release chakra build within him. Wood release, world of trees advent. The ground trembled. Saplings erupted from the soil as if countless lives were screaming upward, their growth impossibly fast. The earth cracked as trunks flooded through the surface, and thick, living trees burst into being across the battlefield. In moments, the open plain was a dense forest. But these weren't mere trees. They moved like sentient trance, branches and trunks lashing out to strike the nearby hidden mist shinobi. Yagura's staff was halted by a tangle of trunks and thick branches. The battlefield's mood flipped. Konoha and hidden mist shinobi alike stared at Mu Yue in stunned silence. "This!" Mimurabe Ketsu stared at the forest, at Mu Yue standing before it, disbelief written on his face. His first thought had been genjutsu. The sight was too extraordinary to accept, but he was a veteran and checked himself quickly. This was not an illusion, it was real. "No wonder he spoke so boldly," Mimurabe Ketsu muttered, his expression shifting into one of complicated understanding. He had assumed Mu Yue was arrogant and premature in fame, but the truth was plain. Mu Yue's power was exceptional, and he had control over it. With genuine wood release at his command, Mu Yue could face the bulk of the hidden mist force with only half his men, and dash across the field to aid Teacher Chen if the other half were ambushed. Kakashi let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He had known Mu Yue was skilled with a range of chakra natures and techniques, and that he had taught Yamato wood release secretly at Danzo Shimura's behest, but Mu Yue had never displayed wood release in front of them. To actually see the technique now, on this scale, left him shaken. Mu Yue had mastered 7 chakra natures, developed many S-rank techniques, and possessed 2 bloodline limits, one of them wood release. It was hard for Kakashi to imagine what could truly threaten such a shinobi. Obito watched with boyish awe. "Wood release! That's so cool, Mu Yue-sensei," he thought, a pang of envy in his chest. He'd always felt Sharingan was powerful, but wood release, rare and legendary, seemed on another level. Senju Hashirama had been unbeatable with it, and Mu Yue's display only deepened Obito's wish to learn it himself. The Konoha forces, their initial fear replaced by exhilaration, now looked at the hidden mist as if the numbers were reversed. Hidden mist soldiers, by contrast, were pale and shaken. If their village didn't punish desertion so harshly, many would have fled. The memory of the first Hokage's forest-making myth still held sway among shinobi. Wood release inspired fear. Yagura smashed branches with his staff, his face tight with displeasure. Older hidden mist men, those who'd heard tales of Senju Hashirama, felt the pressure of the technique the most acutely. In the past, Konoha had even used tree illusion genjutsu to evoke fear of wood release in enemies. Even with almost double the manpower, Yagura could not help feeling the urge to pull back now. 639. The true ninja god number 2. He's not Senju Hashirama. He can't be the ninja god. There's no way everyone's wood release would be that powerful, Yagura Karatachi kept telling himself, clinging to whatever confidence he could. Even with wood release, facing nearly double his numbers, he knew he couldn't retreat the instant they made contact. By his estimate, Mu Yue couldn't have mastered wood release all that long. Otherwise, he would have used it in the last fight. If Mu Yue's strongest technique was only the original Tree World Advent, then there was still a chance. Everyone, withdraw, Mu Yue ordered the Konoha force. He didn't elaborate, but Mimurabe Ketsu didn't ask. He trusted Mu Yue implicitly. As long as Mu Yue didn't order suicide, Mimurabe would obey. With the help of the newly grown trees, the Konoha shinobi fell back. Sensing something amiss, Yagura Karatachi barked for the hidden mist to retreat and put distance between themselves and Mu Yue, the wood release user. Many hidden mist shinobi had been waiting for that command for a long time. It's a wood release master. Fall back. Mu Yue allowed his opponents to pull back for a reason. Under the influence of his wood release chakra, fresh trees erupted and grew in a rush, their branches lashing out and blocking the hidden mist's escape. Only the strongest, Yagura Karatachi and Shingetsu Hozuki among them, smashed through the barriers and made a break for it. Wood release, art, advent of a world of flowering trees. Once Konoha had withdrawn, Mu Yue gathered a massive amount of chakra and unleashed an enhanced form of Tree World Advent, a world of flowering trees. Thick, enormous vines burst from the earth, twisting and slithering like a swarm of green primeval serpents. Mu Yue guided them with a casual movement, and every attack directed at him was swept aside. Several vines slammed down with crushing force, and the battlefield filled with the spray of blood as dozens of hidden mist shinobi were shredded to pieces in an instant. This is a monster. How monster? How can we win? The survivors stared at the shredded bodies and the rolling walls of vines. Their courage collapsed. Could they fight a wood release user of this caliber? They would die. Some, driven to frenzy by despair, charged toward Mu Yue with drawn blades, vowing to fight to the death. But huge flower buds bloomed across the vines and released a gray-yellow pollen that instantly blanketed the field. Those who threw themselves forward inhaled the most of it and collapsed first. In moments, the majority of the hidden mist unit lay unconscious, felled by the pollen. Only a handful of elite shinobi managed to break free. Hayate Mugetsu! Yagura Karatachi, one of the few who hadn't inhaled the pollen, stared as his force of over 1,000 was felled by a single wood-release jutsu. His vision went black. His knees nearly gave out. Could Konoha really have produced a second wood-release master after Senju Hashirama? No wonder he had us withdraw first. As expected from a wood-release user, Mimurabe Ketsu muttered, looking over the fallen hidden mist. A wide-area attack like that carried the risk of friendly fire, and Mu Yue had chosen his moment perfectly. Many Konoha shinobi watched the battlefield in stunned silence, as if trying to imprint the scene into memory. The second wood-release user, after Hashirama, had just scattered a 1,000-man force with a single technique. "Quick, don't let those few escape!" Kakashi cried when he saw Yagura Karatachi attempting to flee. If Yagura escaped, the victory would lose some of its shine. "I'll open the gate of limit!" Might Guy roared and burst chakra through his body. Kakashi slipped quietly into his lightning chakra mode and sprinted. Obito and Shisui were after them at full speed, with Rin Nohara following, a step slower. "Stay here and guard these hidden mist," Mu Yue told the Konoha force. Most were unconscious, not dead. No need for everyone to chase the remaining jonin. He switched to lightning chakra and vanished in an instant, becoming a yellow stray. "Confiscate their weapons and bind them." Mimurabe ordered. With so many prisoners, negotiation would follow. Yagura Karatachi raced with body flicker, mood heavy. It wasn't merely fear of blame from the third Mizukage. He felt he'd let that trust down. Still, he believed it wasn't entirely his fault. Who could have expected Hayate Mugetsu to also wield a powerful wood release? He actually caught up. Yagura noticed the yellow flash closing and formed hand signs. Water release, water gun technique. A massive ball of water launched at Mu Yue. Simultaneously, Shingetsu Hozuki and his subordinates, Tosha Kawasawa among them, joined the assault. Water release, water dragon bullet. Water release, water gun. Mu Yue formed signs and raised an earth wall to block the incoming attacks. He then drew Enma from his space, became a yellow bolt again, and in an instant a sharp blade of light flashed. One hidden mist jonin cut clean in half. Shingetsu Hozuki swallowed hard. He knew Hozuki Mangetsu had fallen to Mu Yue before, and their clan's techniques were vulnerable to lightning-strong foes like Mu Yue. "Show some backbone! I'm still here!" Yagura barked at his men. Even if he couldn't stop Mu Yue, a shinobi should not appear timid. Better to die on his feet than be cut down with his posture broken. Shingetsu remained where he was, uneasy. Yagura didn't need to be faster than Mu Yue, only faster than his own subordinates to give himself a chance to escape. But when Yagura charged with his iron staff, Mu Yue met him without hesitation. "What are you afraid of? You've already lost," Mu Yue said coldly. "You!" Yagura gritted his teeth and swung his staff. Clang! Inma deflected it easily. As Hidden Mist saw Yagura's attack parried, they readied to pounce, but Mu Yue's disciples arrived to even the odds. Leaf Dragon God! Metkai exploded with chakra, his body spinning into a green dragon that barreled at Tosha Kawasawa. Tosha, wary of Metkai's assault, retreated while answering with sharp water release jutsu. Flash! Kakashi struck like lightning and dove at Shingetsu Hozuki. He didn't cut him down, but he forced him back, breaking his rhythm. Shingetsu inwardly rejoiced. Finally he could avoid Hayate Mugetsu, but that relief vanished almost immediately. Mu Yue's aura surged, and Unma blazed with purple lightning. Yagura tried a water instant body technique to dodge, but Mu Yue read his movements and closed in. The purple blade blazed, more brilliant than before, a tearing power everyone felt in their bones. Yagura channeled chakra to fortify himself and poured more into his staff to meet the blow. Crack! A deafening lightning crack echoed as Mu Yue unleashed the purple slash. Yagura's iron staff split cleanly in two. Blood sprayed, and Yagura's body flew backward like a kite on a broken string. A charred slash mark, over 20 meters long, scored the ground where he'd been standing. Shingetsu's forehead dampened with cold sweat. If Mu Yue could cut down Yagura so easily, there was no hope of escape for the rest. Tosha Kawasawa watched, pale. He had assumed Yagura and Mu Yue were equals. He hadn't expected Mu Yue to have grown so frighteningly strong. Obito and the others arrived then. Obito didn't hesitate. He used summoning technique. Summoning! Scheherazade appeared with a roar. It wanted to flame Obito reflexively, but then turned and unleashed a gout of fire at Shingetsu Hozuki, who was engaged with Kakashi. Shisui summoned Zoroark. Seeing the chaos, Zoroark wove a powerful genjutsu. To Shingetsu, the illusion made Zoroark appear like a demon of blazing blue flame, and in dodging that, he opened himself up. Yang Seal release! Kakashi pushed his lightning chakra to the edge. Purple lightning coalesced, and a long, narrow purple slash shot from him and struck Shingetsu Hozuki. Shingetsu tried to use hydrification to lessen the damage, but the thoughtless blade was relentless. He crumpled to the ground, unwilling and surprised. He had not expected to be taken down by these young shinobi. Melodic aid guy! Rin, having arrived last, summoned Melodic. Its power exceeded hers. Might Guy, seeing backup, no longer held back. Rock-breathing chakra mode, open. He concentrated his breathing to the extreme. Chakra poured through him. Melodic formed a thick, high-pressure water column and fired it. Tosha Kawasawa tried to counter, but with Might Guy bearing down, he couldn't use it effectively and was pushed back. Might Guy charged with a blinding burst of power and struck with a drawing the sword motion. Golden Skyline! A slashing golden line of force tore through Tosha's body, and the impact hurled him through 7-8 trees, 15 before he finally came to rest, stunned and broken. By the time the dust settled, the hidden mist force was finished. Some were dead, many wounded, most unconscious, and not a single one had escaped. Mu Yue watched his disciples work with a satisfied nod. With their strength and coordination, they had dispatched powerful jonin like Shingetsu Hozuki without outside help. Mu Yue had given Yagura Karatachi a little medical attention, then returned to the battlefield with his disciples. When he used Thoughtless Blade earlier, he had intentionally held back. The strike seriously wounded Yagura, but didn't kill him. Everyone else who fled with Yagura had not been so fortunate. Obito and the others had pressured the Hidden Mist team to the limit. They fought to kill, and few survived. "Commander Mu Yue, is that Yagura Karatachi? You captured him alive?" Mimurabe Ketsu asked, eyes on the man Mu Yue held. Capturing someone of Yagura's rank alive was almost unheard of. Those in his position usually carried the village's deepest secrets and preferred death to capture. If they were taken, interrogation and punishment could be worse than dying. The risk of taking him alive promised equally great rewards. If they could interrogate Yagura, Konoha would gain invaluable intelligence or a powerful bargaining chip. Mu Yue nodded. Having seen him rout a 1,000-man force before, Mimurabe Ketsu wasn't surprised, only impressed by Mu Yue's precision and steadiness. Even if the Hidden Mist had only brought 100 men, Ketsu thought the result probably wouldn't have changed. He had misjudged Mu Yue at the start. Now he knew it was his own misunderstanding. Most of the Hidden Mist force lay unconscious across the field, and their commander had been taken. The tense Konoha units relaxed instantly. At first, seeing a force nearly twice their size, some Konoha shinobi had feared the worst. Now the threat had evaporated. What's the connection between Lord Mu Yue and the first Hokage? Distant relatives? A few Konoha ninja furtively compared Mu Yue to Senju Hashirama. Mu Yue didn't carry the Senju name, but the shared wood release and his terrifying power at such a young age made people whisper. He seemed to them almost like a new Hashirama, an idea no one dared voice aloud. Teacher Chen and his unit arrived at a run, expecting to crash into an ongoing battle. He activated Body Flicker and charged in, only to find Hidden Mist shinobi scattered on the ground and Konoha teams already cleaning up. He blinked in confusion. Where was the crisis he'd prepared for with Metkai? Then he noticed the strange trees and thick, elongated vines dominating the area. This is the first Hokage's wood release. Chen's memories of Konoha's founding stirred. He had actually seen Hashirama in action. While this display wasn't as overwhelming as the firsts in his recollection, there was no mistaking it. This was wood release. "Sorry, Deputy Commander Chen," Mimurabe Ketsu said awkwardly. "I misjudged our situation. I thought we were in danger and sent the signal flare. But Mu Yue's strength was beyond my estimate. He defeated the Hidden Mist force, captured many of them, and even took their commander alive." Chen stared at Mu Yue. He had suspected something, but to learn the truth still surprised him. The bloodline limit of the ninja god had returned quietly. Since the report had to go up the chain, the combined force set camp nearby to await orders. Word of Mu Yue's art. Advent of a world of flowering trees spread like wildfire. Those who had seen him change the course of the battle called him the next ninja god. Soon the entire 1,600-strong Konoha force knew of his feat. "Teacher Mu Yue, what would someone need to defeat you?" Kakashi asked after thinking it over. Better to imagine from Mu Yue's perspective than guess blindly. Mu Yue considered. "First, a chakra reserve far greater than mine and much richer combat experience," he said. He had a vast arsenal of powerful techniques, and in equal chakra conditions, he had a huge advantage. But transmigration left him with limited real battle experience. They'd also need strong ninjutsu or secret techniques and a way to stop me from using Flying Thunder God to escape. Kakashi frowned. Based on those requirements, even the Kage of the 5 great shinobi villages might not meet them all. How, he wondered, could anyone restrain Flying Thunder God? Had Mu Yue been facing a force led by a Kage, someone willing to sacrifice themselves rather than allow Mu Yue to flee and save his comrades? Konoha, Hokage Building, Conference Room. Hiruzen Sarutobi, Utatane Koharu, and Homura Mitokado sat with grave faces. Konoha felt assailed on every side lately. Hidden Mist's raid, Iwagakure stirring trouble and sending a large force into the grass country, and ongoing fighting along other borders. If they couldn't stop the bleeding, the village couldn't sustain such attrition. There isn't much strength left inside Konoha now, Koharu said. If we send another force to reinforce Jiraiya, Hidden Mist might take the chance to attack Konoha directly. That's the worry, Homura agreed. Hiruzen rubbed his temples, pipe between his fingers. The logic was sound, but doing nothing was no solution either. Just then came a knock. Enter, Hiruzen said, and an Anbu pushed the door open. Third Hokage, advisors, urgent intelligence from the East Coast front. Hiruzen snatched the report and read. The worry on his face slowly melted into surprise, and then relief. They hadn't even been half a month since Mu Yue's departure. Hiruzen had hoped for a small victory at best. This was far more. Mu Yue had scored a major triumph, capturing more than half the Hidden Mist force, and Yagura Karatachi himself. Hiruzen drew a slow breath of pipe smoke and let it out, feeling lighter. One battle didn't fix everything, but this one was crucial. With so many prisoners and Yagura in custody, Konoha could negotiate a peace, perhaps even demand reparations. For the foreseeable future, Hidden Mist would be sidelined, leaving Konoha to contend mainly with Iwagakure and Kumogakure. Homura read the dispatch, and his face reflected surprise, delight, and a touch of awkwardness. He was pleased at Mu Yue's success, but embarrassed that Mu Yue had used a tactic similar to his own and achieved it to full effect, while he himself had been wounded and forced to retreat. We should contact Hidden Mist for negotiations, Homura said, and we can send Mu Yue to the Iwagakure front to support Jiraiya. That would resolve our immediate crisis. Both Hiruzen and Koharu agreed. Hiruzen surprised them by adding, after Mu Yue returns from Iwagakure, assign him to the Fire Shadow Assistant position. If all went well, Hiruzen intended Mu Yue to succeed him as Hokage. Putting him into the assistant position first would smooth the path and prevent complications. Koharu hesitated. Mu Yue was young, but after reading the intelligence she fell silent. Mu Yue's achievements spoke for themselves. Homura nodded. Mu Yue had earned the trust to take on such responsibility. Elsewhere, Uchiha Madara, who had White Zetsu watching the Konoha force, received the same intelligence. Lord Madara, we'll have to change plans. This Hayate Mugetsu, he clings to his disciples and keeps them with him on every mission, Black Zetsu complained. Their scheme had been to embroil the shinobi world so Konoha would be stretched thin and Mu Yue wouldn't be around to protect Obito and the others. But Mu Yue forbade his disciples from leading teams alone or taking missions without him. That made their current arrangements useless. Combined with Mu Yue's ability to use Flying Thunder God, Black Zetsu said they had no easy way to handle him. Bring that grass shinobi here and execute the backup plan, Madara said coolly, leaning on his staff. Black Zetsu protested, but Madara cut him off. I don't have that much time. I'll act personally this time. Confidence bled from every word. If Madara was involved, there would be no accidents. I understand, Lord Madara. Black Zetsu replied and withdrew. In the dim cave, the aged Uchiha sat alone. He looked like a solitary old man until anyone noticed the commanding presence that still clung to his lined face. Hayate Mugetsu, Madara murmured. The second would release after Hashirama. Don't be too boring.